So, Jacob, I hear
Yes.
you hate half of the Smash Brothers roster.
Even more.
Exactly. So, we need to cut half of the Smash Brothers Ultimate roster and see which ones we're left with. You know, just cut off all the fat, just cut out all the ones that we're like, no, we don't like this thing, and see what we're left with. So we have about 89 characters here. I think we go down to an even 40. Like, we're cutting more than half.
Yeah. I have had this conversation with so many people, and now I'm happy to do it with someone who's going to listen.
Thank you very much. So first up, so we'll go one by one. Should we have any rules here? Because I've seen other people online have specific rules where I believe one rule that I saw was we can't cut an Echo Fighter without cutting the fighter it's based on first. Because, like, cutting Echo Fighters is too easy. Like, you know, so it's just like, if we're cutting Dark Samus, we gotta cut Samus, too.
Yeah.
Should we instill that rule, or do you just want to get rid of most of these Echo Fighters?
I'd like to just see... I think some can stay, is the thing.
Ooh.
Because I feel like in a new Smash Brothers world... Because this is kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, we're not making Smash Ultimate. We're making, like, Smash Ultimate 2, you know? Like,
Exactly.
so many of these characters have outdated movesets, especially, like, in the 64 era. Like, I feel like the punches and kicks are just too much from, like, you know, Donkey Kong, Mario, Fox. Like, it's just very samey movesets. Like, even Kirby, for some reason. I think, like, you know, give Mario his Odyssey moveset. Give Link his Breath of the Wild moveset. I think a lot of these can stay, but... No, we can go one by one.
Yeah,
Want to talk about Mario?
Yeah, I want to talk about Mario first off. So, let's talk about Mario. First off, Mario feels like this disgusting amalgamation of everything from, like, Mario 64, and just feels like he's stitched together with, like, random things from future games. But, you know, he's Mario. You can't really do much about that. You need Mario in the game.
I think it's crazy that in Brawl, they were like, we're going to reinvent Mario, and just gave him Flood.
It seems like a very out there thing to just have, considering, like, since then, that's pretty much been Mario. I mean, like, the only thing they really changed in Ultimate was some of the taunts and some of the idle
Cappy
animations.
appears.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the big
pretty
Mario
much it.
taunt.
Like, okay, that one always confused me as a kid, which was
Yeah.
stupid, but like, I always thought, like, it's just like, oh, damn, is this some kind of power-up? I think the current taunts, honestly, I feel like the current taunts are a bit of a downgrade.
I think the
From what I
thumbs up
remember.
one is funny. I do
Yeah.
stand by that one. But I don't know. I wish we got the thumbs up and the big Mario. Because I think it was funny because his whole hurt box would shift up with the taunt. So it was pretty bad, all things considered. And then I think in, like, Melee, it was the longest taunt. Maybe Young Link's Milk was longer, but it's like one of those two. They're pretty egregiously long taunts.
They got rid of Fire Mario, which
Yeah.
was odd. I remember like a theory.
It was in Wii U, though.
Yeah, it was in Wii U, but I remember a theory going into Ultimate that was just like, what if they make Fire Mario his own character, like an Echo Fighter of some sort? And I
Yeah,
was just
we
like,
have
you
3
know
Links.
what?
Why do we only have 2 Marios?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I got something to say about that second Mario. But I do feel like, unfortunately, as much as I wanna have some jokes, goofs, and gaffs, I think we gotta keep Mario. Unfortunately,
I do, but I think we got to give him, like, the Odyssey moveset in my mind.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, I think there's so much more you can pull from throughout Mario's entire history.
I
There's
think, like,
not
the Galaxy
really.
spin is, like,
Yeah.
as iconic as all the other stuff.
Well, they could have. He still has, like, the Mario Tornado as, like, one of his moves. You know, it was like, now it's like his down aerial, right?
Yeah, they changed the little leg twirl.
Yeah, so it's just like they could have very easily. I think in, like, one of the fan games, like Super Smash Flash 2, they made the Mario Tornado like a Mario Galaxy reference, where, like, the Luma
that's
popped out
nice.
of his hat.
Yeah.
That would have been, like, a very easy reference for him to throw in there. But you know, alas, Mario's moveset has always been a bit standard. But you know what? I think he's
It's
safe
just
for now.
64 was, like, just the home of punches and kicks. But yeah, I think Mario's safe. I think Donkey Kong. I want to keep Donkey Kong safe too.
Really? Wow. Really pulling
Yeah.
some punches with that opinion.
Yeah,
I don't
hot
know.
take.
Yeah. I mean, if it comes down to it, there may be
No.
more.
I'm never taking Donkey Kong off if that's what
I
you're
mean,
going with.
hey, I love I love Donkey Kong. I love his games too. I don't think enough people play his games. But if it comes down to it, I feel like he might be like, if we cut it down to like 20 Nintendo characters, maybe 15, he might have to go. But if we're cutting it down just to 40, I think he's safe.
No, I'm standing by Donkey Kong. I would fight to keep Donkey Kong in Smash Brothers. Like, okay. I think
how far would you go? How far would you go to fight?
I would shed blood. I don't think I would risk my life for it, but I would get close to it.
Just at least shed blood.
Yeah.
not risk your life, but at least like, ouch, you know?
Yeah, a hospital visit's worth of defense. I think that's reasonable.
Exactly. But I do think his moveset, much like Mario's, does need a very large refresh. It does feel way too generic. It just kind of, like, a lot of the characters from Smash 64 feel a lot more like their moveset is designed around... Yeah, they look more designed around the characters' proportions rather than like references to their games.
I think the biggest issue that like they ran into was obviously this has never been done before, so let's take a crack at it. And it feels like they put all the personality in the specials, and then they just made all the like the normal attacks pretty standardized across the board. Like why does Kirby have the same up air as Mario? Who has the same up air as Falcon? You know, it's just they're all so similar.
His moveset is one of the most generic. It's just based on he has big hands. But it's Donkey Kong. You can't do anything about that. You know, it's just like it's one of the best excuses in the book. He's Donkey Kong though, so it's just like we gotta keep him, unfortunately.
I'd say like what Smash 64 characters would we even want to remove? Because I think most of them are like Nintendo staples. And we can just kind of assume that they're staying. But who do you want to remove from the 64 era?
Well, I think if it comes down to it, you know, because like the core 12, the original 12 are some of the most like, it's just like, these are Nintendo's mains, but there's a couple that I think have definitely fallen from grace. I think Fox would be one of them. Not as in like, I'm not saying let's cut Fox immediately, but if it comes down to it, I think it makes sense. You know, it's just like how relevant is Fox to Nintendo's current...
Fox and like Captain Falcon are kind of those like quintessential Smash Brothers characters, but I do agree in the overarching Nintendo world, they don't really serve any relevance because like everyone always talked about like, you know, you have your Samus, your Mario, your Link, your Kirby, but honestly like a lot of those IP representation has kind of been shifted to like Animal Crossing, Splatoon, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Where Nintendo like wholly owns Star Fox and F-Zero, like they can make them like Animal Crossing and Splatoon, where it's just like you see in promotional material, like I think on like the Nintendo NY store, there's like this banner with like the Nintendo characters walking, and that one is like it just has Mario, Link, you know, the Animal Crossing characters, like probably just Isabelle and like Tom Nook, and then, you know, Inklings from Splatoon. And that's pretty much it. Where, you know, like I think a lot of people who aren't in the know might say it's just like, why isn't Kirby there? Why isn't Pikachu there? Why isn't, you know, like any of these characters? Because like Nintendo doesn't wholly own them. But Nintendo wholly owns Fox and Captain Falcon. They can put them on that poster. They just choose not to. they don't want
it's
to,
a conscious decision. I think, honestly, I'm fine. We can get rid of Star Fox. We can get rid of F-Zero. I don't think that's a hot take.
Star Fox takes up 3 damn characters on this roster, and I don't think these characters really represent Star Fox very well at all. Like, nobody really thinks immediately, like, it's just like these, like, when these characters were implemented in Smash 64, like, it's just like having these characters on foot and whatnot, you know, like, just isn't very indicative of their games.
Fox and Falcon are really just like Smash characters, you know?
Yeah. That's all they really are. There was like an on-foot unlockable multiplayer mode in Star Fox 64, but nobody cares about that. Like, it's just like you're taking these characters that are well known for being inside ships, both the Star Fox characters and Falcon, and like they just feel like Smash Brothers characters, like you say. So we'll put the X over these guys for now. Maybe if we go back and there's better options, we have some.
I'm ready to hit the cutting room floor.
I'm ready to just cut whatever. I don't even care anymore. I don't care.
Let's get rid of Jigglypuff.
Yeah, because Jigglypuff is just there. Jigglypuff is there because of seniority. That's it.
Yeah, we have 1,000 Pokemon. Like, okay, in this new Smash game, hypothetical, like, there are new Pokemon to add. So, like, let's not harp on Jigglypuff. You know, we can keep Pikachu, you know, that's the mascot. That is Mr. Pokemon.
That's the big boy right there. I do agree. But of course, we both skipped over Ness.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like we can maybe keep him for a little bit. I think his inclusion is unique enough. I think you might want to have that niche Nintendo representation. But I'm also, you know, like if once again, if it comes
Lucas.
down,
I don't think we need both.
Well, obviously Lucas would be the one to cut.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just like his game only released in Japan. Ness at least is
he
like
the only Smash character who isn't released in the States.
I mean, like Roy, sort of, but not.
Oh
really.
no, you're right. You're right, Roy.
Yeah,
like
that's
FE7
kind of like
was American, but that's like not.
Yeah, there might be like one more. I don't know.
I don't think
like
so.
Richter's game kind of came out here a couple times, but it originally was only Japan. So, I think it's Lucas, but
yeah, I think Dark Samus, right? We do get rid of Dark Samus.
Well, do we want to instill some rules? Because like when we get into Echo Fighters, that's a little too easy to chop them off. So if we get rid of Dark Samus, we have to get rid of Samus. But we could get rid of Samus without getting rid of Dark Samus.
But
just to make things harder.
I think we should keep Chrom above like every other Fire Emblem character. So like that's why I want to have that talk when we get there.
Well, we get rid of Chrom. Oh no, we keep Chrom, but we get rid of Robin just so then that really annoying thing I don't like is removed from the game. Yeah, I hate that. Like why?
Because they didn't change it from Smash 4. That's it.
Yeah, it's just like they forget. They forget. There's so many other instances where it's Sakurai's just like, oh yeah, we made sure that when this character's in play, this assist trophy doesn't appear, or this final smash is different, except for Robin's final smash.
What is it? Alucard can't appear on Wii Fit because there are mirrors there?
Yeah. So
That's so cool.
They thought that one through. But not Robin and Chrom. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I think okay, fine. We can get rid of the Echo Fighters without that little rule. I saw a couple people use that rule. Whatever. Dark Samus is one of those characters that's kind of just included, just to kind of like I feel like Dark Samus was kind of just requested just because like this would make sense, not because anybody's actively like god. Dude,
they got added for the same reason Ken did. Like Ken's a great character, but he's like the Echo Fighter of Echo Fighters, and he's like barely an Echo Fighter.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like this character is just added to bring more Metroid characters in rather than what does this character bring to the roster? What does this character say? What does this character do in their game that's like really impactful? Like it's more so like it was easy to add, and I feel like people requested Dark Samus because it was just like it was like, why not? You know,
I think if you asked me like a year ago, I'd probably say, yeah, let's cut Samus too. But I think with Dread coming out, I don't think that was enough. But knowing that Metroid Prime 4 is on the horizon, that makes me be like, yeah, we should keep Samus.
Yeah, I would say, I'd say Samus has enough notoriety throughout all of gaming, as in like, you know, like she's just had some of the most impactful games of all time. You can just look at like Super Metroid and Metroid Prime as like.
But Zero Suit's gone, right?
Yeah, because it's just like Zero Suit felt more like an invention for Smash Brothers, just to have like another little thing for Samus to do in Brawl.
I mean, because Final Smash, and then you get a new character. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, now it's just kind of like, okay, well, I mean, like it's a decent character on her own, but it just kind of feels like. It just kind of feels like, you know, like it's just another Samus. Obviously, they're vastly different from each other, but yeah, I feel like we could. I mean, might want to have that debate though. I don't know.
Okay.
I think Zero Suit is different. It's not like I'm keeping Mario and Dr. Mario, you know, or Link and Young Link and Toon Link. Where, like, even though Toon Link looks vastly different from both of them, like, it still kind of follows a lot of the same design elements, where Samus and Zero Suit Samus look completely different, but they are the same character.
The biggest thing is that you have to keep in mind a lot we could make this a very slow game with how we're balancing, right? Because removing like Fox and Falcon, and like those are like the speedsters of the game, and realistically, there's a timeline where we cut Sheik, we cut Zero Suit, and it's just like now all of these like more referential characters are just like slower, like young Link, or you know what I mean? Like it's interesting because a lot of the faster characters pull fewer references because it's just normal punch, kick, whatever.
Yeah, but for this hypothetical game we're making, they can make all these characters just stupid fast for no reason.
Okay, no, I'm back on. I say,
yeah.
Let's get rid of Yoshi.
Yeah, screw it. I always hated him. I think I'm happy with the top as it is right now.
I think Ness is pushing it.
Yeah, we could go back and cut Ness later if it really comes down to it. Because, you know, we have to cut 49 characters. Peach, I think, is safe. Daisy...
I think we can cut Daisy. Because,
yeah.
like, Mario... I mean, even if we really wanted to, like, we wouldn't cut Luigi, but, like, you could.
Yeah.
We won't, but you could. I think Daisy is, like, that same argument, but a little bit easier. I want to cut Ice Climbers.
Oh, yeah, Ice Climbers... Like what are they doing? what do they represent other than like an era that has already been? Yeah, like you already have Duck Hunt to represent that 8-bit era. I think you're good. I mean, like Ice Climbers is kind of like, you know, kind of championing the often forgotten games, but it's just, Duck Hunt represents like three games in one. You have like multiple references to multiple of the NES Zapper games. So I feel like Ice Climbers was still in kind of that era of Smash Brothers when they would make movesets, and it wasn't like the most like super referential thing. That I mean, they would still they were better about it.
That they're like there's two of them. Like there's not another character like that. And the one thing like I do when I see like the new Smash Brothers game, I think like out with the old and with the new. You know, like I was pretty confident that Steve wasn't coming to Ultimate just because whenever they inevitably make Smash 6, that's going to be like put Steve on the cover kind of game. You know, like we're gonna have, like that's when we put Fortnite
only
Jonesy
thing on
in.
the cover.
That's when we put Freddy. Yeah,
yeah.
Like
only damn character in the game.
It's just Steve. I mean, at this point, he might as well be.
Yeah, I think we can cut Ice Climbers. If we're cutting 49 characters, we gotta start cutting some soon. Sorry, I think it was amazing to see them back during that Smash Ultimate teaser. That was like, oh
such
yeah,
a good reveal too, because you see Ice Climbers, you're like, they're back, and then everyone's back. But it gave you a moment of just like, oh, this one character is back. Wolf's back.
That was such a fun like time. It was still kind of in that like rush of getting off the Nintendo Switch launch, and 2018 wasn't like the greatest year for like the Switch. It was really filled with ports, but it just, you had that feeling of like just building up to Smash Brothers.
It was the ultimate year.
Brothers.
That's what the entire year was. Like every Nintendo Direct, people waited for the new character announcement and everything like that, and they went full steam ahead. Because I remember they announced Simon, Richter, Chrom, Dark Samus,
like
and
5
K.
damn
Rool
characters
all in the
in
same
one
trailer. Yeah,
they did like so damn many of them. It was crazy. And like they really were top heavy with that.
Yeah, definitely.
It was
regrettably so. I think they talked about that later.
But it was just a fun year, man. Like I look back at that one. That was like one of the last big like really fun years in gaming that I remember. Like 2018. Every year since then has been a little like I felt like you know, it hasn't really lived up to like, you know, like this year or that year. But you know, I'm hoping like you know, the next year or so we'll really pick up the pace. But you know,
Zelda
Ice Climber
characters though.
Yeah,
I think the only like if we're going down to the basics, I think the only Zelda characters we need are Link, Zelda, Ganon.
That is true. I would potentially fight for Toon Link, because Toon Link does offer something unique. You know, a lot of these characters I would consider keeping for the potential they could bring in this hypothetical Smash Brothers game where they cut down all this roster, and because of that, they do focus on making sure, like, all right, the characters that we do have, we're going to revamp their movesets and whatnot. And Toon Link, I'd hope so, just to be more focused on the games Toon Link is from, whether that's Wind Waker, Four Swords, Minish Cap, whatever. Just,
even,
you know,
though giving Link some, like, Breath of the Wild inspired stuff, they're still too similar for me, especially when you throw Young Link in the mix. I think, like, if you just gave Link like the glider from Breath of the Wild, like that alone would have made such a huge difference because the hero spin is just the same across all three.
Yeah.
But I
think we can
don't think we need Sheik. Yeah.
Sheik has been like Sheik is literally like it just references basically one Zelda game. I mean, like there are very Sheik like instances, like Tetra and whatnot in Wind Waker, but that's not Sheik. It's more so kind of like a similar vibe to Sheik.
Mm-hmm. But then there's like so many other characters in Zelda who could be Sheik. From like Impa, obviously, or you could have whoever's in Breath of the Wild 2. We can bring a new Zelda character over, and they all kind of do the same ninja-esque thing. But Zelda stays 100%.
Yeah,
but Dr. Mario.
Sheik... Oh man,
go on. Talk about Sheik.
I was just gonna say that Sheik would feel weird to cut and replace with like a new Zelda character, but that it wouldn't be
or
weird
just like
because
that
Sheik
type of character.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wouldn't feel weird because Impa's been in more Zelda games, like Impa's been a more consistent character. Sheik is kind of mainly just from Ocarina of Time, so doing that, and Impa's her own character too. So I was originally kind of on the train of like, oh, Impa is just kind of like a request to have a new Zelda rep and that's it. But I've kind of come around on that, just with how much they've been using Impa in recent games.
I definitely fear that they were going to throw in like the Linkle, remember, from Hyrule Warriors?
Yeah.
I thought that was coming for some reason. I was fearful.
They could have included whatever, that other original character in Hyrule Warriors. What's her name? Lana?
Yeah.
But
I'm shocked we didn't get like a Breath of the Wild like champion in Ultimate. I definitely saw that one coming.
I think it would have been cool if they would have done like all four of them or something.
Like a trainer?
Like something like that. I think that would have been pretty rad. But either way, I think Sheik goes, Zelda stays. Dr. Mario is the fattest cut that I've made so far. This thing pisses me off. I don't like that thing.
So there's rage here.
I like the Dr. Mario games.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I like the concept of Dr. Mario, but the problem is this character's always been just a dumbass clone of Mario, and they don't do anything.
I think the down air in this game is hilarious. His little Dr. Stomp.
Yeah. But it's just like you could reference so much stuff with Dr. Mario. You could have made his Final Smash like a game of Dr. Mario, but no, it's just the Mario finale with a giant ass pill.
Okay, so my biggest issue with Smash is, one, we could have gotten a Dr. Mario stage, right, with all the pills.
Exactly.
Falling. That would have saved the character. But I think with all the we've had stages in Smash that don't have character representation, like Electroplankton, right?
Yeah.
I am.
we need an Electroplankton character. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with it. But how in this gaming crossover do we not have a stage of one of the most selling games of all time of Tetris?
Yeah,
we have Tetris music in Smash.
Yeah, you have the music.
Long overdue.
It's really weird how Nintendo is just so like they only reference Tetris when they really want to, because it very much feels like a licensing thing. They don't want to pay the license or anything. They also have Tetris Spirits in the game. You have Tetris Spirits in the game too.
Do. It's a weird relationship of, honestly, Tetris alone is a very weird history, but I think that deserves a spot in the gaming crossover of the century.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's weird because like even on like the NES Classic edition, they didn't include Tetris on there, but Sega went out of their way to like pay for the Tetris license for the Sega Genesis Mini. Tetris was included on that, and that damn game never even officially released. They were just like, oh yeah, let's put Tetris on this thing. I don't get it. Nintendo just doesn't want to deal with Tetris sometimes. So whatever. I agree with you. Dr. Mario pisses me off.
I'll let you have that. Yeah.
Incorporate the damn viruses or something in his moveset, or at least make him part of his taunt or something where it's kind of like
Pac-Man has like that, like his down smash with the ghost. Like you could have done that with the viruses.
Easy, and it would have looked more like it would have looked more natural with Dr. Mario because the viruses would have more like look like they have more weight to them. They look like these pudgy ass little things.
Not like the 2D motionless pixel sprites.
Yeah, they don't like they would do anything to you. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't like. I'm fine with Dr. Mario as a skin, or potentially like if they actually want to give him a unique moveset, fine. But no.
Dr. Mario's on the cutting room floor for me. I think a skin, that's nice. I'll accept a skin because like that's what like Project M did, like same character but different skin. And I think Pichu.
Yeah. No chance in hell. No chance in
Pichu's
hell
gone.
that thing is making it out alive. I think, like, it's cool from the perspective of, like, all right, you're bringing back everybody in Ultimate. That's
They
awesome
had to bring
that
back
Pichu's
Pichu.
But that is awesome that Pichu's back because everybody else is back. Like, you remember in Smash Wii U when that
When they
leak
brought back
came out?
Roy?
Well, I mean, just that leak came out for the Smash 3DS on that select screen, and everybody saw Dr. Mario, and they were like, why? You know, it's just like, that's
People
kind
thought
of
it
the
was
feeling.
fake because of the Dr. Mario, which is the funniest part. It was the Little Mac over Shulk,
Yeah.
and then it was the Dr. Mario. They're like, we're not adding Shulk, we're not adding Duck Hunt, we're not adding Dr. Mario, fake leak.
Yeah, well, it was kind of the positioning of it that made me feel like it was weird because Smash 4's character selection screen
the
is like
echoes.
organized weird. It was always organized weird. So like I was like, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
But
I don't know why they
whatever.
threw like the 3 echoes like down at the bottom. Also, Doc's not an echo.
No, but like a character like Chrom is pretty damn different from
Yeah.
Roy.
I would even
Yeah.
say like Pichu and Pikachu are more similar than Chrom and Roy.
I think because they have such seniority, like, you know, they're from Melee and they were their own characters before Echo Fighters were created. I think that's why they're considered that. And when Lucina and Dark Pit entered Smash 4, everybody was kind of like, well, these characters are really similar. Like, this is really,
People
like...
were not happy about those.
Yeah, this is really stretching the definition of clone because this is just a straight-up skin kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's why they're considered that, and Dr. Mario and Pichu aren't. But
And we're like getting rid of Falco, right? Because
yeah,
we
we're
got
getting
rid of Fox.
No, we keep Falco.
No
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah, it's yeah. I mean, like, Star Fox is definitely a series where if you're gonna have one character, you just need Fox. I think having. I think having all 3 is really pushing it if we're cutting down the roster. You know, I like all these characters here, but if we're cutting them, then we're cutting them. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marth is like a controversial one, right?
I think Marth makes sense just because Marth has always been the poster child for Fire Emblem. You know?
Yes.
Like, you look at the new Fire Emblem
Yes.
game for Switch, and it's a big deal. Oh, Marth is back, and then Fire Emblem Awakening.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, Marth. And, you know, Marth is always, like, the main guy for Fire Emblem and Fire Emblem Warriors and Codename Steam when they had Fire Emblem characters. You know? Like, he's always kind of the main one.
I think my argument held more water before Fire Emblem Engage was announced. Because I think in a lot of the promotional material, what Marth is used to be, they've kind of done the same with Chrom in a lot of ways. Not only is he just like blue-haired Fire Emblem Lord, but it feels like Awakening was a huge turning point for the series. So I think like you could even leverage having... I know the correct answer is Marth, but I feel like there is an argument to put Chrom in as like the face of Fire Emblem.
I think it is fair to keep a good handful of Fire Emblem characters.
Yeah.
Fire Emblem's obviously the punching bag of the casual Nintendo fans, or just regular Nintendo fan who just doesn't want to dabble in anything that's not Mario, Zelda, or Pokemon.
It's so crazy that Nintendo fans will play every single Nintendo game besides Fire Emblem.
It's an overwhelming game to people
It's
who don't play that kind of
weird.
game, you know?
Yeah.
'Cause
Like, that's fine.
I haven't
It's just
delved
the
too
hate.
much. Yeah, I haven't delved too much into Fire Emblem. I know for a fact, if I just sit down and I'm just like, all right, I'm going to play Fire Emblem, and I'm committed to it, and I sit down and I play it, I would learn to like it. But I just don't have that. I'm just like, I just don't have that kind of time commitment to make to a game that I'm kind of like, I'm
On the
not
fence with
super
anyways. Yeah.
interested to play. But I know for a fact, like, it would be good and I would like it. But, you know, it's just, it's easy to make fun of just because in Smash Brothers, you know, we have like, what is it, 8 at this point?
Yeah,
like 8
you have
characters.
like 10 Pokemon, 8 Fire Emblem.
Yeah, and
Mario's a
when Byleth
weird
was
thing.
announced, like, for somebody who doesn't know 3 houses, I mean, even in general, like, it's just like, you know, a lot of this is like, oh, character silhouette, like, how much does this character stand out? Byleth does not stand out if you have Marth and Chrom and Lucina and all these other characters there already. So I think, you know, that's kind of the main problem. But
just like a little spoiler on who I'd keep in Fire Emblem. Like, I'm not looking at who has the most interesting and unique movesets because that's honestly the player characters of like Rob and Corrin, and I don't think those are necessarily like worth keeping. But I do think that like Byleth has an argument, despite being like, you know, in Three Houses, because that's like the Fire Emblem that people actually played.
Fates was always controversial. It is one of the most disliked games in the fandom. You know, people don't really. I've just seen a lot of people say they do not like Corrin. They do not like the game Corrin is from.
Yeah.
All of that. Not saying that Fates is overall like a bad game, but more so it's one of the
pretty
least
tropey. I think is like why a lot of people don't like it. And they also did, you know, like I mean, I saw your video on it. It was just why did they do a dual release for it?
Yeah, it's it was funny. It was funny that they did that because it's just like I don't know. It felt very much like that game needed that decision to be made in game, and just splitting it across two kind of devalued it tremendously.
I got into Fire Emblem because like I walked into GameStop in like late high school once, and I just saw Fire Emblem Awakening, and I was like, I've never played the Marth game before. I'll try it out. And then I played through it, and I liked it a lot. And then Lucina, Robin got announced for Smash. And it was really cool to like play that game and be like, I know them.
Well, that's why I think we keep at least one of the Awakening characters.
Yeah.
Because like Awakening was genuinely one of the biggest moments for that series.
I think Robin is the most interesting moveset of all Fire Emblem characters.
But I'd say Chrom is the most iconic from Awakening.
That's the thing,
you know?
yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And
Well,
also,
I'd say
Hero
we
kind of does the same thing.
Hero?
Yeah, we agree with Lucina.
Yeah, get her out of here.
Yeah.
And then get Young Link out of there, too. We don't even have to really...
Yeah, we don't even have to discuss over that one.
Yeah, that one's just unnecessary. Like, it's cool that he's here because of Ultimate, but it's also like, it's just like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
you know?
the shtick is there. Ganon stays.
Yeah, you know, you need that major Zelda villain. Do you remember in like Smash Wii U when people were saying just like, oh, they're gonna cut Ganondorf and replace him with Demise? And I'm just like, what are you talking about?
It's so crazy how people like treat those legacy characters. Because I remember people, I mean, in an era like Smash Wii U, Smash Brawl, Smash Ultimate, like they're not cutting Falcon, right? And every single game, people were terrified that they were going to. Because I remember Falcon didn't appear until the Lucina Robin trailer. And that was what people took away from that trailer. Not these two new Fire Emblem characters, but that Falcon is in the game again.
Yeah. It almost felt like they had to do... They were like, all right, I don't really know how many people are really going to care about this unless we announce Captain Falcon is here.
Yeah, which is
in
funny.
addition to them.
And he's still not Falcon Punched in a trailer. Fun fact.
Damn. Still.
Yeah.
That's sad.
He always gets interrupted before he says punch.
Which other ones did he do that in outside of the...
It wasn't in like any like animated trailers, but I did see like a compilation of like fight like in-game stuff.
Okay.
But that was like the first time they like animated it, and it was just like, come on.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering if maybe it was like in the opening movie to World of Light or something. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Well, either way, moving on. I think Mewtwo stays. I think Mewtwo is one of the most iconic Pokemon. I think he deserves to stay. I think it was weird that he was cut in general from Brawl. I think, I just think like Mewtwo is just a Pokemon that I feel like is so iconic, you know? Like everybody, like if you don't know Pokemon, you still kind of know Mewtwo. So
and
I think...
I know, you know, I'm sure you're aware of like the whole billion lions versus one of every Pokemon argument.
Exactly,
and it's like every time that argument is brought up with like the most casual of people, they always say, but what about Charizard, Mewtwo? You know, like those are the first two that come to their head. Also, which side are you on in that argument? I have to know.
Like Charizard versus Mewtwo, like against 1,000...
Billion lions versus one of every Pokemon.
One of every Pokemon?
Yeah.
A billion lions. Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, there's only like a little under 1,000 Pokemon. Do we count like the weird like evolutions? Not evolutions, more so the
forms?
the region variants. Yeah. Like the Alolan forms and all that stuff.
No, just 905 Pokemon right now.
Because the Pokemon are pretty powerful. There are some wacky ass Pokemon in there, but a billion lions is a billion lions.
That's what I'm saying.
That's like a good 1/7 of the world's population of people.
For reference, each Pokemon has to clear 1.1 million lions. And think about
1.1 million lions. And 1 million people in one place, that's a lot. But, like, there's some pretty powerful Pokemon in there. There's some, like, mind-bending Pokemon in there. Like Mewtwo. You can break those lions' minds. Not that there's much going on in there anyway. I mean, they're damn lions.
I see both sides of the argument. Don't worry.
Damn. Can we come back to that? I'll think through it a little more. I'll think through it a little more while we cut Roy from the game.
Fair enough.
Roy,
Chrom,
unnecessary.
I think
we'll keep him there for now.
Yeah. I think we can keep Chrom.
Yeah, I think if it comes down to it, once again, he's kind of in the Ness territory where, you know, he is pretty similar to Marth, but he does represent, like, the game that saved the Fire Emblem franchise, like, one of the most popular overall games in the Fire Emblem franchise. I think he deserves to stay. For now.
No, I'm super down keeping Chrom, and honestly, even Game & Watch, I'm down.
I think Game & Watch is... Game & Watch represents a similar thing that, like, Ice Climbers is trying to, but I think Game & Watch nails it much more, not only with, like, the references, but also just kind of being, like, such a unique character referencing such a unique period of Nintendo's history.
Yeah, there's no other way to represent what Game & Watch represents without Game & Watch. You know what I mean?
I think he stays. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
Meta Knight, like, I think... Like, I feel like, do we need 3 Kirby characters, or can we just whittle it down to, like, 2?
I am in the same camp, because I think, like, they're going pretty hard with Kirby, like, randomly and suddenly, it feels like. But I would feel safe to... Also, I don't know, this is, like, the Smash player in me, like, Meta Knight is, like, such an integral part of Smash history. I mean, it's, like, the same thing as cutting Fox, you know? Like, what Brawl was to Meta Knight is, like, unforgettable. But I think if you just had the representation, if we're being harsh, I think we can cut Meta Knight and leave, like, Kirby DDD. Because I think those are, like, different enough and more iconic. Because Meta Knight is iconic, but not on the DDD level, I feel.
I think to non-Kirby fans, I think Meta Knight might be a little more iconic just because of, like, what he represented to Brawl, you know? Like, I feel like a lot of people know of Meta Knight just because of that, maybe. I'm not sure, though. I'm probably talking on my ass. I'm going to be
because I feel like the Venn diagram of casual players who are aware of competitive Brawl, you know?
I do agree with you, though, that, you know, it would make the most sense because, like, DDD's been there since the very start for Kirby. You know, Meta Knight was only introduced in Kirby's Adventure, and DDD is kind of like, you know, Kirby's go-to frenemy.
Enemy to friend kind of dynamic. The Wario.
Yeah, and the design is so significantly different from Kirby. Not saying that, like, Meta Knight is like, oh, it's the same damn design. I mean, when you take the mask off, kind of, but still.
Yeah. That's a big reason for me choosing DDD, too. It's just, like, they're visually different, which I think is helpful. Which, like, even though we have Marth and Chrom, you know, like, I think, yeah. I'm down to scrap Meta Knight.
I'm just trying to think if it's just like we skip over him and that's the first one we go back to. If
I say take the
we don't cut them all.
I say take the plunge and we can come back because like Fox and Meta Knight to me are still in this gray area.
Yeah, I'll give him the axe. And if we cut too many, then he'll be the first one to be lifted of the curse. You know, Pit stays.
Pit can stay, but why?
He had a couple. Well, yeah, you're right, but still, he had a couple. Games.
Look, I'm a massive Uprising fan. Don't get me wrong, but if they had announced like Kid Icarus Uprising HD on the Switch, like last Direct or something, I'd be like, all right, Pit clears. But as it stands, I love the games, but I don't know if Kid Icarus has a future in Smash. Like Palutena, Pit, Dark Pit, everything.
Well, like, you know, Kid Icarus is so well represented in Smash Brothers. Definitely because it's Sakurai, directed Uprising and all of that. Because Palutena is a character that, you know, if you play Uprising, you definitely know. But without Uprising, you know, like you see, like she's in the title of the Japanese version of Kid Icarus, so it's just like she is a big enough deal.
Yeah, I mean, Legend of Zelda, right?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, yeah, it feels very similar to that. But I do think Pit does a good enough job representing the entirety of the Kid Icarus franchise. But without Uprising, it does kind of feel more like when you're scraping the bottom of the barrel and you need to have more characters for Smash Brothers. Oh, there you go. Here's one character that we haven't used in a while and represents a series that we haven't touched, but, I think fans would enjoy. Like, that's what Pit feels like without Uprising. With Uprising, I think, obviously he stands a lot better. But, Uprising's also 10 years old at this point, too.
I think Pit, that's kind of like what my point is. Like, most of the characters that we're letting stay have, like, this strong legacy of, like, Kirby, Yoshi, Pikachu, and stuff like that. And the ones who we're keeping that are a bit more niche are, like, Game & Watch, Ness, Crom. And I don't think Pit is on that level, personally. But
I do feel like he's unique enough.
I do agree with that. He has a
unique enough design. He has a unique
enough
moveset,
Ice Climbers.
all of that. Yeah, but it's just like, I feel like Kid Icarus is a better game overall, like the original. It's not great. It's not amazing, but it's a game that I think most people can go back to and be like, that's fine. Where Ice Climber is something you play once and you're just like, all right, I'm good. I think on the next, if we get to the end and we're like,
I think Pit's the hardest
screwed.
maybe I have, though.
Yeah, I say we keep him there. And I might have the same debate for Zero Suit at the moment just because of how unique she is. She may be the exact same character as Samus, but she's entirely unique in terms of design, moveset, all of that.
I think I can entertain, like, the Samus Zero Suit Ridley. Like, even though Ridley's a newer addition, I think it's just long overdue. It has a deep culture in Smash, despite only being an Ultimate. And I think just as you were talking about with Samus, just the impact of, like, Super Metroid and everything like that, I think Ridley and Samus, like, I would pick over Zero Suit, but I think Zero Suit can also stay.
I would say that, too, mainly because Zero Suit does feel more like, well, Zero Suit was obviously in the Metroid games. It feels more like something that was more so made for Smash Brothers rather than like, wow, Zero Suit Samus is such an integral part of the Metroid series. Because, like, in the last bit of, like, Metroid Zero mission, you're playing as Zero Suit Samus. But, that's on a Game Boy Advance, super pixelated. It's not like, oh, damn, like, oh my god, like, this makes total sense. It feels more like, oh, this would be cool for Smash Brothers. Let's put Zero Suit Samus in there.
I think all, like, Metroid characters are super unique, though, like, in Smash. Yeah. I think they stand out well. I'm down to keep Zero Suit. I think it's a much easier yes than Pit. Like, I am still heavily on the fence with Pit.
I would say I'm a little more on Pit's side than Zero Suit's side.
Smash 4's roster is a lot of cuttable.
Yeah.
It's super cuttable. Yeah. Look, we can keep Zero Suit, and then we just keep Wario, right?
I think Wario definitely stays. Snake has always been a weird one.
Yeah, I think he's the least Smash Bros. Character.
Yeah, even now with all the other garbage we have now.
And like 2007 on like Brawl Dojo, I remember waking up and just thinking, what?
I think it's amazing that he's here. I think he's a part of Smash Brothers history, but it was always strange that he was always kind of like the first third-party character,
It's weird that it wasn't Sonic.
It's weird that they were like... It's weird that Sakurai had reservations against like somebody like Pac-Man or something, Like, that just seems like the most like obvious, like, get a character to include in Smash Brothers? That guy, Like, it's just
everything
like...
about Snake
feels weird.
Because it feels like, let's say Snake was never added in Brawl, he would be on like people's DLC wish list in Ultimate, but still not that high.
Yeah, he'd be like a Dante. Like Dante
exactly.
from this game, where it's just kind of like, I don't really think if we didn't have third-party characters already, people wouldn't be begging for like Dante or Travis Touchdown
like
or
Sonic.
All those
people
characters.
Were begging for Sonic at the time.
Yeah, and people were begging for Sonic and Melee, and I wasn't around for the Melee. All the Melee after Melee speculation before Brawl, but I don't think many people were going like, oh damn, Snake. What if Snake was in the game?
I was very online through this period because this was like when Smash Flash 1 happened,
Yeah.
And like before Brawl came out, I was grinding Smash Flash, and they added not just Sonic but Super Sonic to that game, and then like Tails, Knuckles, and then 2 Sonic OCs. Which is insane. Everyone wanted Sonic. I mean, think of like all the Sonic and Melee rumors on the playground. Like, people were convinced that the character was a Nintendo character. Because, like, kids don't know this. But, like, Sonic was so integrated on the GameCube, right? So everyone kind of just thought, yeah, he's a Nintendo character.
Yeah, I think Sonic stays. Now, it would be really interesting to do cutting half the roster of Super Smash Flash 1 and see how many of the Sonic OCs we keep.
Mr. Incredible stays.
What do you think about Ike? Because Ike is one of the more unique Fire Emblem characters.
100%.
I mean, at least out of the ones that we've gone through so far. So and he's also been a part of multiple games. He had two games, and he's also cameoed in other ones since then. So it's interesting. I think Ike. What do you think about Ike?
I think like cutting down the Fire Emblem roster from 8 to 4 is still like a pretty good job, well done. I know some others might make it go like 8 to 0, but I think Ike is super unique and he stands out as a character, right? Like more so than Roy. I mean, Roy is our boy and all that, but I think like Ike as his character, it's just different. And it's so interesting how, like, Roy was a clone of Marth, and now Chrom is a clone of Roy. But through all, like, this distillation, Chrom is, like, an entirely different character than Marth. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I think so far, like, doing Marth, Chrom, Ike, and then one of the other Fire Emblem, I could imagine keeping either Robin or Byleth and potentially leaving that slot as like, hey, the next Fire Emblem character or something, like, as in, hey, this slot is kind of open for whatever the
Colgate
next main character. I'm down to keep Ike. I think Ike makes sense. It stinks because it's something that is kind of like, am I saying that just because like, oh, this character's been a part of Smash Brothers for so long, or is it because like genuinely Ike means more to Smash Brothers than somebody like Robin or Corrin or Byleth, because technically those characters have more unique movesets. So.
Yeah, but those swords are like such an interesting and necessary archetype in like a fighting game, and I think you need that, but unfortunately most of the sword characters are either Fire Emblem or just like some other RPG. Yeah. But so they all get grouped together because, most of those RPG characters are sword wielders, but I'm fine to keep Ike, maybe come back to it later, but I like Ike. And then Pokemon Trainer, I think, is like an interesting one.
Yeah, I think we could kind of do like three X's for this one, because they all count as 3. I think the way Smash 4 did it was like the only way they could have. I mean, like they obviously could have done something if they had the time to include all 3 of those Pokemon as separate characters. But if you have to pick one, I do think Charizard is the most
100%.
Like, that makes the most sense. He's the most iconic out of all of them.
The Pokemon Trainer gimmick, though, is genuinely, I think, the most interesting character in all of Smash Brothers. So I'm fine to do, like, what I wish Smash 4 did on the Wii U was, like, get rid of Squirtle, Ivysaur. Oh, we have Charizard because everybody knows Charizard. And then here is, I guess, what at the time, a Lola Pokemon Trainer or something like that. It was... No, it wasn't out yet. So yeah, maybe Kalos Pokemon Trainer back then. Or even Johto, just go up a generation.
I'm okay with keeping Pokemon Trainer for now. I think when it comes down to it, we could probably whittle it down and just cut the separate Pokemon. But I do think Pokemon Trainer is potentially the best representation of the Pokemon series in Smash Brothers.
Yeah. I think in a perfect world, in this hypothetical, we get rid of Squirtle, get rid of Ivysaur, keep Charizard, and then have a new Pokemon Trainer, just with 3 new. That's a perfect world for me.
Yeah, kind of have all the Pokemon from different, or generations and all that. I think that would be really, really cool. But I think as it is, I'll keep Pokemon Trainer. Now, Diddy Kong, what do you think about this guy?
Dude, I just realized there are 6 Pokemon from Kanto in the Smash Bros. Roster.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, like, it always kind of comes down to, like, what's been the longest mainstay, because even then, I'm looking at Greninja, I'm looking at Incineroar, I'm like, I don't know how much longer these guys are going to last,
Those are, like, seasonal gimmicks, right?
Yeah, those are, like, flavor of the month, who gives a shit?
They could drop Meowth at any given moment, but they can only drop Incineroar after Sun and Moon come out.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it's like, if they dropped Incineroar right now, let's say they were still doing Smash Ultimate DLC,
Yeah.
like people would be like, what? You know, like why?
Yeah.
Especially with like new Pokemon generations coming out since then. So
It's just
like
a miss on promotion above all else.
yeah.
But yeah, Diddy Kong.
What do you think about Diddy Kong? I can maybe take or leave him.
He's a take or leave for me. I think Diddy Kong is like iconic to us in like the gaming sphere, but I think on the outside he doesn't really have that legacy despite always being around.
Yeah, on the outside world, I don't know how many people would really be like, oh hell yeah, I know who that is, and especially with K. Rool here, you know, it's something where it's just like K. Rool represents the DKC series as well.
Yeah.
As Diddy Kong, you know, like that entire
I'd rather have
era.
K. Rool over Diddy Kong, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Diddy Kong is kind of like Donkey Kong's Luigi, you know, like something that's just like, hey, you know, we're not thinking about cutting Luigi, but if it comes down to it, do we really need him?
Yeah, I mean, you were debating on cutting Donkey Kong, so I feel like you gotta.
I'm just saying, if it comes down to it, if we have to trim the roster down to like 15 characters, I think he has to go. But
I think Diddy and K. Rool, honestly, I think could both go, but I like keeping K. Rool personally.
yeah, I mean, like K. Rool is such a fan pick kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think he is way more fun as like a casual player to just pick up and dick around with compared to Diddy Kong. So I'll say we'll cut Diddy Kong just because we have to make some headway to cut all these characters. Like we got to cut
we're cutting
some.
Lucas. We've already agreed on that one.
Yeah, because Lucas is just like I don't know, man.
Yeah, like Ness is a
just
barely and Lucas is a no.
Yeah.
Massive Mother 3 fan, but like we don't need both.
No,
Sonic
I think,
stays.
yeah. Sonic
right?
stays. There's no real discussion there. You know, it just makes the most sense. King Dedede, I'd say
We've
we
already
keep
agreed
Dedede.
on.
Yeah. Olimar, I think we keep
That's
Olimar.
a tricky one.
Oh, really?
I think it's tricky. But like with Pikmin 4 announced, I think Olimar stays, yes. But without Pikmin 4, it's a much harder conversation.
I would say very unique character in Smash Brothers.
Agreed.
Represents a cult hit, but still like respectable enough series. You know, each Pikmin game, you know, sells decently well for the system it's on, and like the marketing, the amount of marketing that revolves around it. Like Pikmin 3 Deluxe did pretty good for the amount of like buzz around it, which was barely any. You know,
like when you consider that, like their conversion for Pikmin is pretty solid.
Yeah, so it's just like I think it's a respectable enough series popularity wise. You know, I just think Nintendo's had a weird time trying to push it. And I think Olimar is again like one of the most unique characters in Smash Brothers. You know, there's no character really like him.
No, absolutely.
So
I'm on board with.
I would argue he would stay.
No, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Olimar staying. I just think like it's just such a tricky character because. One in the timeline, I do like how he has like Alf, and I don't even know who the protagonist is of like Pikmin 4, but I'm sure they would get the same treatment. Okay, can we say we cut Alf? Can we agree there?
Does that even count? Are we just like, I mean, like Alf is such just like white bread. Nobody like isn't just like bleh. Like I would much rather like any of the other protagonists. Why not Louis? Why not Brittany or Charlie or any of the other ones, even though they're shaped a little differently? I'm like, I don't know. There's a lot of different shapes and sizes in the other Smash Brothers skins. I don't know, man. I think.
Yeah, I'm fine to keep Olimar though. But what about Lucario, our first not Gen 1 Pokemon?
I think if you have Mewtwo, like I mean, obviously Lucario is unique, but it's also kind of another one that's very similar to like. I think everybody was expecting Lucario to get cut after Brawl, and when he wasn't, everybody was a little surprised, you know? Like, when he was announced, people were like, what, he's back? You know, like, it's just like, okay, you know?
Because in my casual mind as a kid, it felt like, oh, we're keeping Marth, and we're going to keep rotating out the secondary. Like, I thought we were going to, we have Roy, now we have Ike. And then I thought in the same brain when I played Brawl, I was like, oh, we had Mewtwo, now we have Lucario. Like, I thought that was going to transcend into future games. I think Lucario is kind of a weirdly designed character because one, like the aura is interesting. That's a very unique mechanic. But the other thing is like he kind of feels like he was designed in the 64 era, just with all of his attacks and everything. Like he does have a projectile like Samus, or Mewtwo or something like that, but it's all just like punches and kicks. And I think Lucario is a bit uninspired compared to the other characters. I think Aura is cool, but everything, I'm on your side. Yeah, we can cut.
Yeah, it's just like you don't have to dance around it. We're cutting his ass.
He's cool.
Yeah, I think he has a cool design, and I think he represents an era of Pokemon that it deserves to be represented. The problem is, like when we're getting we're getting around to it. I'm just like, I don't know how many more of these characters can really stay. Rob, I have a lot of love for Rob, but at the end of the day,
I'm scrap Rob team.
Yeah, I mean, like, I loved Rob in Brawl. I thought he was awesome, but like when it comes down to it,
tormenting to hear. I think it's interesting because he's like the first non-video game character in Smash, and the only, really.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's a weird inclusion, and I think Game & Watch kind of covers the weird abstract pick, especially if you're trying to bring them all into like a new game.
I mean, if we really need somebody to represent that NES era, I think Duck Hunt does a more than respectable job. Duck Hunt isn't like my favorite to play as, but I do think like overall from a character perspective, I think Duck Hunt makes the most sense to stay to represent that old school 8-bit era. Because like Rob and Ice Climbers kind of represent the obscure side of it. And I love the fact that Rob is an accessory, but even then, like, they don't really do much with his moveset other than just like he and I think this is kind of cool. He does kind of feel like you're playing with him as a toy in the game, where it's just like, oh man, he uses the gyros from Gyromite. He's flying, oh man. But like, he doesn't actually really reference any of the games that use Rob, which would be completely easy considering like there's only 2 of them. So it's just like just reference his damn games. But I don't know. I think we can cut him.
I think Rob was a really good introduction. I feel like how they introduced Rob was probably like they made Subspace first. Actually, I've never thought about that, but I'm convinced. They made Rob like an enemy in Subspace, and they were like, isn't this fun that we brought back Rob and have a finished moveset for him? Wait.
Yeah. I hope
I'm
that's
convinced.
The case.
That's the headcanon now.
They got really into Rob for a second there, especially with Mario Kart DS and the Sword.
Oh yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah.
You were defending Toon Link earlier.
Yeah, because like he does represent a side of Zelda that is not represented right now. And I think it's really cool that at least in Smash Ultimate, even with all the characters that we just cut, they do kind of represent, they all kind of separately represent different eras of Zelda or different games. Where like Link, Breath of the Wild, Zelda, Link Between Worlds, and A Link to the Past, Ganondorf, Ocarina of Time. Sheik still kind of has that Twilight Princess-esque design from Brawl.
4.
Yeah, and Smash 4. So sure that, but Toon Link and Majora's Mask with Young Link, Toon Link represents Wind Waker. I think Toon Link is so aesthetically different that he does kind of represent that. Though I would probably consider like, if you're gonna keep him, you want to go all the way with the cell shading and make it look like he's from like a completely different game or something. I think
the only timeline I do like including Toon Link because like Zelda is a game of several different Links.
Yeah,
but the reason I'm so against Toon Link because as it currently stands, like the differential line between like Link, Young Link, Toon Link is far too thin to have 3 of them in the game. Like they're in the game because it's Ultimate, right? Everyone's here.
Yeah,
and I think Young Link and Toon Link are pretty interchangeable, but I do think Link's base moveset is fine. And I know you want to go the opposite way and make Toon Link so much more unique. But I think like if you kept Toon Link the same and then made Link way more Breath of the Wild, I'm sold.
You know what? That would make sense. I'd be okay with that. I think, when it comes down to it, I feel like we're kind of beating around the bush here, especially me, just because I'm like, I'm kind of like, hey, this is why I'd keep Toon Link. But let's be honest. We're probably going to go through this whole roster, and we're going to be left with, like, we need to cut 5 characters. He's probably the first to go.
Yeah.
So might as well just kind of get it done right now.
I think there is an argument for Toon Link, but...
Oh, for sure. We just did it. We just argued it.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
And Wolf,
but,
gone. Yeah, no argument.
Get him out of there. Get him out of there. Now, Villager, if we have Villager and Isabelle, which one should we keep? Or keep both,
Dude, I think both, because... it's if you're going off popularity of the series, because what New Horizons is like the second best-selling game on the entire Switch, like outselling Breath of the Wild, Odyssey, and every Pokemon game on the Switch. Like, I think you could even say Animal Crossing deserves like 3 or 4 reps if you really wanted to.
Like, I don't think Tom Nook should be just a part of, like, the final Smashes. Like, I think Tom Nook could be his own character, even another character, or whatever. Like, you could have more. But, of course, with Animal Crossing's nature, they're kind of like, well, you know, let's keep it pretty, you know, like, basic and all that. So, I get it.
But I really like their movesets. I like how none of them are violent characters. It's like, it's fireworks, it's tripping with the pot, it's balloon flight, you know? It's just... I think it's so interesting how they make these, like, very innocent characters into a fighting game. And I would love to see that more. Still, like, I would like a bigger difference between, like, Isabelle and Villager, because they just have so much overlap, where I think you could... Villager, in a vacuum, is one of the most creative characters, I think. And I would love to see that emulated yet again with Isabelle instead of just copied. Yeah,
for sure. I think it's something that's, like... If Isabelle is right alongside Villager in the next game, I think Isabelle needs more differences, and I don't think that's too crazy to think of. You know, like Animal Crossing has a billion things in that game. You know, you can come up with random movesets on the fly. But I do agree with you. I think Animal Crossing is a big enough franchise. It does make sense to have both. If we'd have to cut one or the other, I'm kind of torn, you know? Like, if we end up having to cut one, I'm kind of like, well, the Villager is the most consistent thing across all the Animal Crossing games. But Isabelle is a dog,
did
you know?
She debut in New Leaf?
Yeah, she only debuted in New Leaf, so...
That's crazy to think about.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Isabelle feels like the face of Animal Crossing, like, next to Tom Nook and everything. But it's crazy that Isabelle... No, that messed me up. Like, I feel like I knew that, but still saying it out loud, having it confirmed.
It's pretty wild, but, like, Animal Crossing is Animal Crossing is about animals.
When you think Animal Crossing, which do you see?
I kind of immediately go with the Villager.
Yeah.
Personally, but I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like with all the branding and all the marketing and all of that, like, Isabelle is the face of Animal Crossing. You look at, like, the front of Amiibo cards,
Dude.
you look at merchandise, it's always about Isabelle. It's never about the Villager.
I cut Ness. I cut Mario before I cut Isabelle.
Yeah, but we'll keep both of them for now.
Yeah,
we'll keep both of them for now. Mega Man. I love Mega Man here. I think Mega Man is like one of the coolest characters, just based on how authentic his moveset is. Yeah, one of the best ones. It's just the perfect character to start Smash 4 off, at least third-party character. But it's just like overall relevancy. He's kind of like Banjo-Kazooie. Where it's just like...
I agree.
It's something where it's like, he's important to like people like us. We're like, oh, yeah, this. But it's just like, in the grand scheme of things, you know...
To Steve Mains, I don't think they really see Mega Man and see like the value. Because, I mean, the relevancy of Mega Man, like growing up, like Mega Man was on par with Mario. You know, maybe not to the same degree, but in the same ballpark. Obviously, it's not the same anymore. But Mega Man, for the time, made a lot of sense, and it was the perfect introduction to Smash 4, because Smash 4 is really where we opened the floodgates to third-party characters, and Mega Man was kind of like the first one to be like, oh my god, anything's possible now, you know, not realizing that Cloud was on the horizon, Steve, Sora, and everything.
Yeah, I think Mega Man is a great representative of, like, that era. That era of gaming, and you know, with his Final Smash, it kind of represents all of the Mega Mans and all of that. But overall, it's a little more specific to like our kind of group of like people, rather than like the grand scope of like you know, video game fans and whatnot.
Be honest, like Nintendo would rather pander to the younger audience, anyways.
Yeah.
So I feel like Mega Man getting cut. I mean, you could cut Mega Man style of a Capcom rep in, like, Ryu or something, you know? And
well, Ryu matters more than Mega Man, you know? It's weird to say, you know? It's a weird hot take to have, but it's also like, you know, Ryu matters more, you know? And Ryu represents something greater in Smash Brothers than Mega Man does. I love Mega Man in the game. I prefer Mega Man, but, you know, like, that's just the truth of it.
Yeah, because, I mean... Ryu is still getting new games, and with Street Fighter 6 on the horizon, everyone is excited for Street Fighter 6. Yeah. But it's just like whenever they drop new Mega Man games, like when 11 came out, people bought it for the amiibo.
Yeah, I think Mega Man was kind of always that thing where it's just like people just complained and complained and complained, and it's just like Capcom was like, fine, here you go. And Mega Man 11 did pretty okay, but it was also something that was kind of like, it didn't like blow up the sales charts because it's Mega Man. It has its audience, and they we love Mega Man, but it's also like in the grand scheme of it all, I think Mega Man is more of like an iconic character to like us.
I think there's an interesting parallel of Mega Man and Simon Belmont, because their original games are hard, and that kind of difficulty is rewarded on the console of NES and Super Nintendo, but it just audiences nowadays want something entirely different, and Mega Man and Castlevania never really made that full commitment to change. Yeah. Obviously Castlevania existed on Xbox PS3 prior, but
It's tricky. I really want to keep Mega Man, but it's also I can understand kind of cutting him when it comes down to it.
I think Mega Man's the hardest cut we've had.
Yeah. Do you think we should do it?
I would keep Mega Man over Pit Zero Suit is the thing, because I feel like those were kind of the gray area for us, but I think we can.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's rough. That's rough, though. It does make the rest of the list easier.
Wii Fit Trainer, though.
Wii Fit Trainer. I'll keep her. She represents something very unique. And I'm being serious here. And one of the most popular game series of all time. A part of Nintendo history that is really, really there. The Touch Generations line, all those casual games, all of that stuff. That's a big part of Nintendo. And I think that makes sense to stay here. And I don't think the Miis do an adequate enough job of representing that. I don't think they represent that. They're just Miis. They don't represent the Mii games as a whole. They're unique characters overall. So I think Wii Fit Trainer represents that era. I don't think she does a great job representing the entire thing. She just represents Wii Fit.
Scrapping Mega Man into keeping Wii Fit Trainer is such an interesting maneuver.
But do you agree?
I see it. I mean, who sold more sales on the Wii? Wii Fit Trainer or Mega Man?
That is true. Yeah. Who took the world by storm more? Who, come on. Think about it. Who called
the audience obese more? Mega Man?
Exactly.
Or Wii Fit Trainer? I wish Ring Fit was more popular, because I wish they would, have introduced that character to Smash. I think that would have been awesome. One time I woke up in a cold sweat because I had a dream about a DLC announcement trailer, and it was during Fighters Pass 2, and they filled 2 slots on the roster with new Mii archetypes.
I bet they would do that. I feel like in the next game Archer. Honestly, I would not doubt that happening in a future game. I think that sounds like something to do. They'd cut all these characters first, and then they'd make it. They do that.
Yeah, I mean, I felt after Miitopia, they were opening the door for exactly Mii Mage or something like that.
Overall, I mean, I would understand if we cut Wii Fit. What do you think? I mean, I have my argument for Wii Fit.
Yeah,
similar to Mega Man. I wish I could keep them both. You said, hey, I think we should cut Mega Man, but I would understand cutting Wii Fit, but that's my argument for Wii Fit Trainer.
No, I do see the argument. I think if we're releasing this Smash game, it's all about we're trying to show you what you know, which Wii Fit does fall under, but it all feels like we're trying to pull on what has legacy or current relevance. Wii Fit Trainer is yes, took the world by storm, but it was a blip in history, I don't think
Wii Fit Trainer isn't really the thing that people think about when they think of Wii Fit. I think when I think of Wii Fit, I think of the soccer
add
ball
the balance
game
board,
and stuff.
Though. That's what I'm saying.
I think okay. How about this? We could cut Wii Fit Trainer and we could leave one of the Miis, and one of the Miis could be a little more refined to kind of represent that era of Nintendo. Yeah.
I think the Miis are absolutely fine in their what they are and what they stand for. I think it would just be more interesting if instead of having them separated into 3 classes, just be able to change all their attacks and specials and make it feel more unique and customizable. competitively that's hell, but this is a casual game first and foremost. And I think like if you could do probably not like brawl like sword fighter up air and then like brawler side forward air or something like that, like it'd get messy, but I definitely think like you could just make a more interesting amalgamation of all the Miis and then have some more referential content.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it could be something where like we cut the two other classes, just keep one of them or something there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I like the more generic like Mii brawler too, because then he doesn't have to bring like heavy artillery or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's more representative of like, you know, like, oh man, I'm going to make myself a Mii in Smash Brothers. And it would make sense to everybody that picks the brawler.
Can't believe they debuted them with like Elijah Wood and Ice-T. Remember?
And Lincoln.
And Lincoln. Too. That was the follow-up. Yeah. Could you imagine if those weren't Miis and those were just 3 new additions?
Oh, like I dream of that every night. That would be amazing. I would love that.
You're a Lincoln main?
Yeah. What was he? Was he a brawler?
No, I think Ice-T was the brawler. And then I don't know, because I just remember Elijah.
I think Elijah was sword fighter. Elijah
Yeah.
was sword fighter. So Lincoln might have been gunner.
I'm gonna
which is unfortunate considering Lincoln's fate. Rosalina, I think we could cut. Personally,
I was like
gonna
be. I know I've been like kind of critical on these, and I was gonna be a bit more passive. Be like, if you want Rosa, we can keep her, but I do agree with you. But Little Mac.
Oh, we keep Little Mac. I love Little Mac.
During Smash Wii U was kind of in like Brawl, characters were getting announced that I've just never heard of. And then like between then and Smash 4 was kind of when I got into all things Nintendo and all these other video games. You know, I was like, oh, I recognize Fire Emblem Awakening characters as they got announced. But like I remember telling everyone, I was like, so they added, you know, Ness as this retro rep, they added Ice Climbers, they added Game & Watch, Rob, like all these weird picks. I had told everyone, I had money bet that I was like Little Max getting added this game from Punch-Out. And I felt like a damn genius when he got announced.
Well, it was one of my favorite reveals. I love that one. I watched that in the bathroom of my job at the time. I was
nice.
Just posed up in the bathroom. The direct was going on that day. That was a good direct. I remember that.
I watched the Rosalina announcement in my first hour class of constitutional law in high school.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah,
I
remember that one.
Study hall. I was in study hall of sophomore year of high school. It was pretty wild.
Yeah,
it was a good time. I miss that era of Nintendo Directs just because it was we took what we could get. So pretty much any announcement like that was like what, and like now it's just like we're also, so like numb to it.
I think we're critical. Like we're older and now we can like justify actions with like business decisions.
Yeah,
and it makes the speculation so less fun.
Yeah. Well, I think speculation on Smash just got unfun for me near the end, just because like it didn't feel like there was as many rules as to like how characters could get in. Not that that's really a bad thing, but more so it just made speculation a little more like, well, I want Mr. Clean, and then it's just like, why? It's just like because I don't know. It's just like I just want him. It's just like there wasn't really anything to say against that. It's just like anything can happen. Who knows?
No, it did, and it was kind of. I definitely checked out after of Smash speculation. It was kind of like, I think like I really wanted Joker. Joker got added, and I was like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, after that, it's just, a lot of them felt a little more like businessy decisions, you know?
Yeah, I think Steve was obvious. I mean, that's the biggest announcement in Smash history by like view counts. Sora was an announcement that would have made me pop off like if it was Brawl. Like, when I was a younger and a kid, Sora would have felt more like, who would have seen this coming? But, you know, when Sora got announced, it was kind of like I didn't think they'd let that happen.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But we'll get to Sora eventually. I got some stuff to say about Sora.
Little Mac, stays.
Little Mac stays. I love Punch-Out, and I love Little Mac. Punch-Out is one of the lesser Nintendo franchises, but Little Mac is such a unique character. I think he's fun for people to pick up and play, even if, you know, he has such negative attributes. I think he's just really fun to just pick up and just dick around with, you know? Like, I think he stays. I think he has a lot of unique attributes. He has a unique design. He has a unique play style. And he represents, like, a very niche but consistent enough Nintendo franchise that's been there since the beginning and has gotten consistent enough entries and representation. I think he stays.
Like, I think it could honestly go either way. I think like the other place with like Little Mac is that like my dad was super into Punch Out, and like all the memes of like my grandmother tries to name every Smash Bros character.
Yeah.
Like my dad definitely could name like your Mario, your Donkey Kong, and all that, but like he would struggle beyond that and then still know Little Mac just because he loved Punch Out. So I think it's just because Punch Out was such a huge game at the time, especially like arcade era. Like I think, you tell your friends you beat Mike Tyson and they don't believe you kind of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Little Mac can stay, but he's on thin ice.
Yeah, I think he's kind of right next to Pit, I think that makes sense. Greninja, though, I'm cool with getting rid of him.
Yeah.
Personally. Like,
I mean,
they held personally, like I have a personal problem, but I think
they held like a contest at the start of 2020, and Greninja was voted the most popular Pokemon in the entire world.
Really?
Does that feel incorrect?
I don't see a lot of people. I mean, like I see a lot of Pokemon fans in my day-to-day, commute and whatnot, and I don't see them really talking Greninja. Now, of course, all my friends that are Pokemon fans mainly grew up with like the GBA and DS games, and then fell off for a little bit. Probably got in later on, like maybe like like later 3DS era, beginning of Switch era. So Greninja might be kind of past their prime and a little more foreign to them, but
and if I could like shed some light from like the anime, like you remember like Ash Greninja?
Yeah,
like it had the whole battle bond.
Like Greninja was a big part of that, similar to Lucario. Greninja was kind of similar to Lucario, and like that was the big Pokemon during that era.
I don't think it came close to Greninja because that was like Ash's number 2, like of all time with Pikachu. Like in the current anime, they like tease that he's coming back, and everyone is losing their shit. So that's kind of why I think like I was with you to cut Greninja, but I think we gotta acknowledge that popularity poll because that means something. Like Charizard was 4th on that list.
How about this? I'll move the X over to Palutena for now.
Yeah.
And we'll consider going over back, because that's the problem. Like all the Pokemon that we cut, like we're pretty much down to just the OGs,
Yeah.
So it's just like I think it is good, very similar to Fire Emblem, to at least have like some representation of the modern stuff. So and like I like Incineroar, but Incineroar does very much feel like he was just added
newest generation, right place, right time.
Yeah, where it's just kind of like, well, like he made sense to be added in Smash Brothers. It didn't really feel like it's just like we asked everybody who they wanted added. This just felt like, well, if we have to add a Pokemon, we'll add Incineroar.
Yeah, because I feel like with Greninja, he's unique too. He kind of fills that chic place that we're now removing. And like Greninja is just a cool Pokemon, and given his popularity, like I was instinctually willing to cut it too. But I think like having these Kanto Pokemon, getting a new Pokemon trainer, keeping Greninja, and then adding some Gen 9 Pokemon, I think like that's a pretty round Smash roster.
I think you convinced me. We can keep him. Palutena, similar to like Dark Pit, even though Palutena has a very unique moveset, but in the grand scheme of things, like Pit does a fine enough job representing the Kid Icarus series as a whole. There's 3 games in that series, and most of their representation in this game comes directly from Uprising and not at all from the original NES or Game Boy game. So it's it's pretty much one game. It didn't even like, it has its fan base. It's a great game, but it's like for how popular it is, how relevant it is,
I think if like we cut Palutena, but I think if Nintendo made this list, I think they're keeping her because for Sakurai likes it, they like it, and they went way too ham on her moveset in the customs era of Wii U.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why she and Mega Man were the poster child of customs, but they were.
But it's our list.
Exactly, so we cut her.
We can get her out of here. Pac-Man, we're keeping him.
Yeah, Pac-Man's
I love
clears.
this guy. He's my favorite. Robin, we got Crom, but I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? Keep Robin, Corrin, or Byleth?
Robin, I think we keep Byleth because people played 3 houses. Like, I think that's just the thing. That game sold the best compared to those 3.
All right, get rid of Robin, even though Robin does have a unique moveset and all that. We're kind of just basing
that's
it
how I
off
feel.
Of like, juggling it, you know?
Yeah,
just kind of juggling behind, like, yeah, Chrom is more iconic, but Robin has the unique moveset.
I mean, you could honestly go either, because, like, Marth and Chrom kind of do fill that same role as, like, speedy swordsman and everything. Like, Chrom is more recognizable than Robin. I don't know, actually.
You can kind of go between either one, you know? Either way, we'd keep one or the other. So I'd say it's kind of down to, like, whatever day we wake up. It's just like, hey, either way, we'd cut the correct amount of characters. So either way, we'll cut one or the other. But at this moment, I'm feeling cutting Robin.
Yeah, I just think, like, we could cut Chrom instead just because Robin's more interesting, but it's hard. It's hard.
From a design perspective, like, Robin looks more unique. Chrom is basically just another, blue-haired swordsman. It's something, Fire Emblem has a lot
Robin.
of.
Let's swap Robin Chrom.
Really? You want to keep Robin?
No. That's the problem. Let's cut them both. It's easier. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Shulk, I say Shulk stays.
Yeah, massive Xenoblade Chronicles fan, and I think, like, outside of that, they just keep giving more Xenoblades, and it's hard for an RPG to get made like that, so I think they could do one of those things where, like, Shulk gets cut, and then they add Noah from Xenoblade 3, if that's, like, the new character out and everything. But yeah, Shulk's
kind of like the Marth of Xenoblade, Like, he may not be like the poster child of each game, but he's the poster child of the series.
Exactly.
So I think he stays. Bowser Jr., I'm getting rid of him.
Yeah.
He's like the most
all
unnecessary.
7 Koopalings too?
Well, I mean, those are all the those are all skins. Even though, like, for some reason, like, Smash is so inconsistent with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, for some reason, Steve and Alex have to be denoted as, like, oh, Steve and Alex are in the game, but then Enderman and Zombie aren't part of that list. But then Bowser Jr. is just Bowser Jr. Olimar is just Olimar, not Olimar and Alf. So it's very strange. But Bowser Jr. has always just been, like, the most, like, superfluous addition, in my opinion.
Right, it used to be
he's cool
Pikmin
that he's
and
here,
Olimar, though.
Still.
That was the weird thing.
Yeah, it has to be Pikmin and Olimar. Until now, it's just Olimar.
Yeah, I think it went from, like, Olimar and Pikmin to Pikmin and Olimar to Olimar.
I don't know
why they kept changing it.
And then we have Rosalina and Luma. Just like, all right. But yeah, Bowser Jr., always kind of like he was on the verge of getting cut from Smash Wii U. And, like, I wouldn't blame him for just, like, not including him. It's just, it's kind of something where I'm like, it just kind of feels like adding Waluigi, where it's just like, you don't really need Waluigi in the game, but it's just like, when you get down to it, when you're getting to the bottom of the barrel in terms of new Mario characters to add, sure. Like, that's what Bowser Jr. feels like to me.
He was kind of like the last Mario character needed, I feel.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like, he just kind of completed the circle. It wasn't anything, like, we were in desperate need for, but... And it's interesting to add, like, a mech fighter who takes, like, more damage to their suit than, like, their actual physical body.
So are you in favor of keeping him?
No, I'm just saying, like, its addition made sense, but we don't need it.
I think Duck Hunt stays.
Yeah,
I think Duck Hunt makes sense. I think Ryu can stay. I think out of all the fighting game characters that they added... From Smash 4 to Smash Ultimate, I think Ryu makes the most sense to stay. Ken, pretty superfluous. I think we can cut him.
Yeah. I think, like, if you're going to bring, like, any duo, like, it would be Ryu and Ken. Just because they both serve, like, they have such legacy together. I would be open to keeping Ken, but I understand.
Well, I mean, like, Ken does have enough differences, even as an Echo Fighter, where I'm like, oh, yeah, there's reason to pick him over Ryu, and it's cool to have both of them because, they are a pair, it makes sense, they're rivals, and, but overall, like, I think you only really need
to,
one.
Like, your Smash being inconsistent, like, I think Ryu and Ken being Echo Fighters is a great example of that, because it felt like they just did that because Ken is, like, canonically an Echo Fighter. Like, he's the Echo Fighter of Echo Fighters, but Ryu and Ken are so far apart from each other as characters.
Yeah, it's kind of like, not the same thing, but like Villager and Isabelle, where it's just like, you have a lot of similarities, but, they are different characters, but, like Ryu and Ken are considered like, oh, well, Ken's just an Echo Fighter. It just felt like a very odd thing for them to introduce in Smash Ultimate. Like, why even why even introduce that clarification, you know? Like, and it just kind of messes up the whole roster where it's just like you have the top layer of the
all
fighting
64
roster.
and Dark Samus.
Yeah, just Dark Samus just thrown in there, messing everything up. I'd say keep Ryu. Ryu is the poster child for if we're gonna cut Mega Man, especially, you know, that is the Capcom representative. And
God,
in addition to that,
I don't know why they didn't do more with Echo Fighters. Like, I felt like we were gonna get like a DLC pack, right, for like Echo Fighters cheaper or something.
It just felt like something where I could imagine them introducing them for like as free updates or something.
Yeah, no
like,
Shadow. Like, that's the crazy part.
That was really strange. But they introduced Richter, which, hey, I'm all for. But you know, Richter is a pretty like
niche.
As in like I remember like when Richter was introduced, like I didn't really know who that was. Like I knew of Rondo of Blood, but I didn't know enough of like, oh yeah, like I didn't.
Mr. Rondo of Blood.
Yeah, like I was just like, oh, that's the guy from Rondo of Blood, but I didn't know enough about it. So it's just like, and you know, like that's the great thing about Smash Brothers is it kind of incentivizes you to actually learn on things. So I know a lot more about Castlevania than I did before. Yeah. But you know, it feels like, all right, you're gonna introduce Richter, but not Sonic. You know, I mean Shadow. So I just felt very odd. But I think we keep Cloud.
I think we keep Cloud. I think like especially with like 7 Remake coming out, I think like Cloud is just he's still relevant, and he's like the JRPG character to me.
Yeah, I think 100%. It's just like, and Final Fantasy is like the biggest RPG like series of like, if you're going to include an RPG representative, Cloud makes the most sense. Obviously, like I think, you know, spoiler, I think Hero deserves to stay as well.
Same.
But I think having both of those characters is like this perfect like, hey, boom, there's your RPG not made by Nintendo representation.
Both Square, but that's just kind of how RPGs work. My biggest thing with Cloud, like positive, is that he serves as something massive in Smash history. Because, like, Minecraft Steve and Sora are like, whoa, who would have seen that coming? But in all of Ultimate Prediction, as you said earlier, they never felt impossible. You know, it felt unlikely at times, but I think in a pre-Cloud Strife era, all of those characters felt impossible. I think Cloud Strife was like the first character added to Smash that genuinely did feel impossible.
All right, Corrin, we can kind of get rid of.
Okay, but hear me out.
Okay, what do you got?
Bayonetta is a very unique character.
Exactly. The problem is, Bayonetta is kind of in mainly because of the Smash ballot, mainly because of the big, like, hey, Nintendo got her as, like, an exclusive on Wii U, and, you know, with Bayonetta 3 and all of that, you know. But in the grand pantheon of gaming, while Bayonetta 2 was one of the best games of that year, same with Bayonetta 1 and whatnot, like, does Bayonetta make sense on this roster in terms of gaming all-stars?
I think, like, the key word is, like, Nintendo Gaming All-Stars, and Bayonetta is essentially a Nintendo character now. I think, like, Bayonetta is a swing vote. Like, I think she can go either way. If you want to scrap her, I get it. But I think there's a pretty strong defense for her just by, like, as weird as it sounds, like, she's there with Mario and Donkey Kong, but I think her being, like, from an M-rated game can, like, warrant her cut, which this is, like, a new thing in Japan that happened. It happened like mid DLC for Ultimate, like sometime in like 2020, where you can't say an M-rated game in a non-M-rated game.
Yeah, that's why there was the whole whatever Smash Brothers Cross Dragonborn and stuff, and like the Mii Fighter costume trailers and stuff.
Instead
Smash
of like
Brothers Cross
Assassin's
Travis.
Creed, it was Altair. Yeah, that was such a weird thing, but I think like Bayonetta got lucky. Because, like, I don't know if Bayonetta would have gotten in if Smash Ultimate released in, like, 21, you know?
Yeah, because then what do you do? Because it's just like, oh, you can't even say the name of an M-rated series. Well, Bayonetta's name is the series.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. It's not like Inkling or, you know, like, if Splatoon was M-rated, but...
I feel like they do something weird, like say, Smash Brothers Cross the Umbra Witch or something. Like, it would just say, like, they'd say something weird. Like, it's just like, what? And it's just like, I don't know. I think Bayonetta has, like... I think Bayonetta is a great character to have in Smash Brothers. Like, super unique, crazy unique design. It's just kind of weird because it's just like, obviously she's here because of, you know, the Bayonetta Nintendo exclusivity kind of deal. Yeah. And, you know, just because, like, it's very popular to associate Bayonetta with Nintendo because Bayonetta is fundamentally a Nintendo character. But I don't know. I think she could be in the Pit and Little Mac kind of territory.
Yeah, I think, like,
you know,
she could honestly be scrapped. Like, you know, from a Nintendo standpoint, she would be scrapped from, like, a legal M-rated discussion. But I'm down to keep Bayonetta in, as well as, like, I mean, Inkling is an easy yes.
Yeah, obviously. Inkling is, like, a part of the biggest Nintendo, like, the biggest new Nintendo series right now. We said Ridley. I think Ridley can stay just because, like, still pretty unique. And, you know, you have that villain there. Simon and Richter, I think Richter can
they're both gone.
And Simon kind of has that Mega Man-esque thing where fan favorite, but overall, like, relevancy, even to Castlevania as a whole. You know, Simon was, like, the first major protagonist, but, you know, since then, you know, we've had Alucard, which is just an assist trophy, and we've had so many other characters as a part of Castlevania, where Simon is, like, the go-to most iconic one, but it's also, like, I don't know. You know, like, it is kind of similar to Mega Man's inclusion. If we're gonna cut Mega Man, it feels weird to keep Simon.
That's a good benchmark. And honestly, whenever, like, Simon got announced and I saw the assist or the Echo Fighter, I was shocked it wasn't, like, Trevor Belmont, just because they were, like, pushing the Netflix anime show so hard.
I love their inclusion in this game.
Yeah.
I think they were one of the most cool announcements for Smash Ultimate. But if we're cutting the character roster down that much, you know, I think they have to go. Now, King K. Rool, I like alligators. Or crocodiles. I like them both. I would like to keep King K. Rool. And sure, Isabelle, why not? Incineroar?
Yeah, he's on the cutting room floor for sure.
Yeah, I think we could keep him maybe in the same vein as, like, hey, you know, like, swap him out for the next newest Pokemon. You know, kind of thing.
He's one of those easily.
Yeah, Piranha Plant, that's an easy, you know, like, oh, haha, but, you know.
The joke served its time.
Yeah.
So are you not putting an X on Incineroar, or are you just, like, leaving that there for new Pokemon?
I'll leave him there for new Pokemon, you know? I mean, like, do you think we should just...
I think we should put an X on him, yeah.
Alright. Why not?
Joker? Now we're in the DLC territory?
I know you like him.
No, I'm with you.
But it's such a crazy, cool inclusion. But in the grand scheme of things, it does feel very, like, fan servicey because it's just like, you know, the newest Persona game. It feels a very, like, you know, like, oh man, we want to get buddy with Atlas. Let's throw Joker in there.
I think a lot of it was like, you know, Sakurai borrowed so much of the UI from Persona 5, so it felt like we kind of had to, just in good sportsmanship.
It's a crazy cool conclusion. It's awesome that he's there, but it's also, it's one of the more out of place feeling inclusions. I don't know. Like, is that, what do you say to that statement? Does that elicit a reaction?
Not really, because Joker to me didn't really feel like possible for Smash, because at the time he felt too new. And, you know, we kind of ran into the same thing, like Sakurai stated that, you know, we got the ARMS assist trophy and the Rex Mii costume because, like, ARMS and Xenoblade 2 came out, like, after the roster was finalized, and I'm sure Joker kind of fell into that same thing, which, surprise, we got Xenoblade 2 and ARMS DLC anyways. But I feel like, I don't know, it just felt really new, because I guess when Ultimate was released in, like, 2018, like, when Persona came out, like, 2016 in the West, I think?
2016 in Japan and then 2017 in the West.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's pretty recent for a 2018 release.
It does feel a little fan servicey. It feels a little marketing-y. Even though Persona 5 was one of the best games of, you know, that, not only those years, but also that the entire generation.
A deserved spot, don't get me wrong, but, like, definitely one of its time, because by the time this game comes out, like, they could have added, Persona 4 Pro Tag back then. They're going to add Persona 6 Pro Tag whenever that time comes around.
I think it makes sense to cut him. Hero, I think we keep here.
I think stays for the same reason Cloud.
Yeah, it's just such a big iconic part of RPG and gaming history, and also like just Nintendo as well. Nintendo publishes most of the Dragon Quest games on Nintendo platforms over here.
Yeah.
So it just kind of feels like Hero kind of feels like an inevitability rather than like, oh man, even though he was obviously added to kind of market Dragon Quest 11S.
I think
but,
Hero was added way too late to Smash Brothers.
Yeah, it feels like something that should have been added like in Brawl or Smash Wii U, you know?
I think it would have been warranted at the time, because what's nice about Hero is kind of like the thing we were talking about Pokemon, is that the character inherently has like 4 different skins of like 4 different heroes. And let's say Dragon Quest 13 or 12, whatever comes out, we just add that one into the skins. Like, we don't need to change the moveset. We don't need to change the name. It's Hero.
Yeah. Where Joker is genuinely this is just Joker from Persona 5.
That's the biggest difference.
Not like... Yeah. So, I think Hero stays. Banjo and Kazooie is a total just fan favorite pick. I don't really think it makes sense to have him if we're cutting like Mega Man and Simon and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think they get the cut.
I agree, because it's pretty obvious that like with how Ultimate's a new edition roster went, they were still pulling from like the Smash 4 pull. I mean, Bayonetta was like the easiest one that was like, oh, it's exciting, but it's not like a massive announcement. Like Ridley being added, K. Rool, Belmont, like that just reeks of like the Smash 4 pull to me. And Banjo DLC is just extension of that. Steve probably as well. Sora definitely.
Yeah, where like Banjo is like such a like big thing on like the online reviewer circle kind of thing.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, Banjo-Kazooie, we love Banjo-Kazooie.
People who grew up with Banjo-Kazooie and that's it.
Yeah, it's just like it's really cool to see Banjo here, just because it feels like, oh man, this character that was ripped from Nintendo comes back home.
Yeah,
this is so
it's poetic.
Nice, blah blah blah. Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, like it's weird to say that Banjo and Kazooie might have been like one of the least impactful DLC characters.
I agree.
In the game.
Yeah,
it's really weird to say that, but it's also like, let's look at it from like, even like in terms of like negative reactions, like people complaining about Byleth or Pyra and Mythra and stuff. Like that elicited more of like a big like just
anything,
talking point,
emotion.
Yeah, where Banjo and Kazooie, it felt like
it was acceptable.
Just like, yeah. It was like, oh, yeah, this is awesome. But then, like, it's just like, all right, they're in the game. That's it. You know, like, it feels like it's just like, it's weird.
I don't think it helps that, like, Banjo is such a, like, not a super fun character to play either. Like, he's kind of slow, projectile heavy, and it's like, a lot of, like, people knew who Banjo was in the West, but all Americans had more fun with Hero. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think Banjo felt like a classic Smash character.
He did. He felt like straight out of 64, minus Wonder Wing.
64 Melee or something like that. Where, but I think that's really cool, considering like that's the era of which Banjo was most well known from. So I think, like you said, it's almost poetic that Banjo's in the game and he plays as he does. But overall, like total like whatever fan favorite pick. Like I love that he's here, but it's also like, like let's just be honest here. He's gonna get the cut. Terry, similar thing. Like I'm kind of like I was I was one of those little baby boys who didn't know enough about SNK history and all of that
at the time.
When Terry was announced. Yeah, where like now I understand why Terry is a respectable pick and understand why he matters. Back then I was just kind of like, it just seems like a B grade Capcom fighter ripoff kind of thing. Yeah. But,
well, for the most part, like, that was kind of true. Because, like, one of the reason I knew Terry was because, like, I have a friend who lives in Mexico. And all those arcades back then couldn't afford Street Fighter. So they all bought, like, SNK stuff. So it's so interesting that, like, in that South American, like, Central America, like, Terry is huge.
But overall, in the grand scheme of things...
Yeah.
Terry has a lot of the same gimmicks that like Ryu does in terms of like, oh, you can do the fighting inputs and all that. And it feels very much like all the fighting game characters are kind of cut from the same cloth. It's like, oh, this is their gimmick. I kind of feel like that gimmick was really cool with Ryu, but then when they kept doing it, I was kind of like, all right, Ryu represented fighting games, and it's great to have, I think it's great to show representation of other fighting games, but if we're cutting down the roster by half, I think it really makes sense to just have that one major fighting game rep.
I think there's an argument for Kazuya. I'm pro Kazuya just with how Tekken is.
Really? Ooh, yeah, okay. All right, well, we'll get to Kazuya when we get to Kazuya or Kazuya. I always say Kazuya, but Kazuya, like Kazooie, like Kazoo. Banjo and Kazooie. If we're getting rid of Banjo and Kazooie, we'll keep Kazuya. Byleth, either we could keep Byleth as kind of like a rep as like, oh man, that's going to be our next Fire Emblem rep, but we could also put an X over them because we did for Incineroar.
But here's the other thing. I think Byleth could serve the same role as Chrom. Like, even though Awakening isn't the newest game, Byleth is still like... I just think it's worth that, like, people played Three Houses, which is just something that you didn't always have with, say, Corrin, who was there for marketing, Roy, who was there for marketing. And then we got 3 reps from Awakening, which is crazy.
So you think we should keep Byleth, just not even put the X over them? Because I'm in favor of doing that, even though like Byleth was like one of the most negatively received characters in the release, but I'm okay with keeping the X off of them.
I think
for the reasons stated before.
Byleth, I'm pro keeping Byleth just because like I think they like have their value. I don't think Byleth was necessarily the issue. I think it was just the straw that broke the camel's back, Byleth as the 4th DLC or the 4th Fire Emblem character isn't that big of an issue. It's that it was the 8th. And also, what I personally think made the Byleth reveal so polarizing was that the entire Fighter's Pass before Byleth was third-party characters. It felt like it was all going to be like Joker, Hero, Banjo, Terry, like all... Like, I think what's so interesting is that's such an international pack of like Hero's big in the East, Banjo's big in the West, Terry's big in like Latin America. I think like that's so cool. And then putting Fire Emblem at the like the cherry on top just felt incorrect. Like even me, a Fire Emblem fan, it just felt wrong.
It feels very strange because it felt like we were all getting upset for no reason, where it was like, oh, this was what they were going to end on before the Volume 2 came out? It's just like, well, we knew before Byleth got announced that there was going to be another round of Smash Brothers DLC. So it's just like, I think we were getting upset at like the idea that like, oh, this was the one they were going to end off on, but it's just like, we don't know that. They could have delayed whatever, Min or Steve or something into the next pack. I don't know. My main problem with just Byleth's design was so stereotypical Fire Emblem, where it's just like, for somebody who didn't play Three Houses, they looked so similar to like Marth and Lucina in terms of just like, just proportions, just hair. It was hard to tell them apart. Like if you were even like, and like I'm colorblind, so like even though like there is... Yeah, even though there is like a slight difference in color between Byleth and Marth's hair color.
Yeah, it's more like a seafoam than like a blue, but...
Yeah, but it looks very similar to me, so if I am playing on like a standard, like even like the Three Houses stage, like, and it's Marth versus Byleth, it's going to be hard for me to tell them apart sometimes. So, it's a little tricky, but... that's kind of where my main problem with Byleth comes from, is just their design being really similar to like previous Fire Emblem characters. But I'm down to keep the X off of them, as strange as it may be.
Because like, to be fair, they could have added Byleth into like the base game for promotion like they did with past characters they really wanted to, and that would have been met with more controversy. I don't even think we need like Fire Emblem Engage as pro tag in the next game or anything. I think Byleth is fine. I'll defend Byleth, but... Where do you stand on Min Min?
See, that's tricky because ARMS sold as well as it did because it came out so close to the Nintendo Switch's launch, and everybody was up to just play something new. Yeah. And a lot of people liked ARMS. A lot of people like myself were a little disappointed at the lack of content. And some people absolutely hated the game. But I think overall, it does have a fan base. It did have a consistent enough fan base playing online and all of that.
I mean, visually, the music, like...
Oh, it was
it's
fantastic.
nice.
The
I like the
presentation was
world.
great.
Yeah, the presentation's great for ARMS.
It felt like they wanted to just do another Splatoon, but in a different genre. It felt very similar
I agree.
in almost every way outside of like the gameplay and genre and character designs. In terms of like they were trying to do this whole lore that was kind of in the game, but not really. Like they even had like their own kind of fake language and random stuff like that, and the free updates, and they had like a test punch and all of that. It just felt like Nintendo
similar.
wanted to do something very similar to Splatoon, but with a completely different franchise.
They're two IPs that they've dropped in like the last decade.
Yeah, which is good because like everybody was begging them to do new stuff, and they did. And I think both of the franchises, at least conceptually, in terms of like the design and memorability, like Splatoon was obviously way better, but ARMS, I think ARMS did a decent enough job for what it was.
I think if there was more ARMS, like we have 3 Splatoons, you know?
Yeah.
You know, if they're gonna drop ARMS 2 eventually, like that's a different topic. Because I think just even like ignoring the legacy or how recognizable Min Min is or something like that, like they could add Springman and Min Min in the next one. But I think it's like it's worth entertaining the thought of keeping them just because it's like this is Nintendo's game, and if they're gonna do more, this is a whole world they've created, blah blah blah. It's like it's their new IP. So like I can go either way. I personally I'm like, yeah, screw it, scrap Min Min, but like logistically after talking, I feel like we could keep her.
She brings a lot of variety in terms of like it's a very specific kind of like moveset, and
no one else
fighter,
could be
like,
that.
No, and I think that's what's really cool about her. And I think her design is really cool. I think ARMS music is great. The ARMS aesthetic is really fun.
Now I'm thinking like, oh, we could even add Springman. You know, like, oh, we could have 2. Like,
well, it's strange because Min Min was like one of the first major characters that's not really like on the box, you know? It was like the representative of that franchise.
The first like non-main character to be the first addition in their series, right?
Yeah,
the second would be like Pyramithra.
Yeah, well, I think like the entire idea behind Min Min's inclusion was that they said like there's no main character of ARMS. Everybody's the main character.
I don't agree with that personally.
Yeah, I don't because Springman was always like Springman had a clone in ARMS, like the Springatron Man, whatever.
Yeah, it's just Metal Sonic kind of energy.
Yeah, it's Springman was always the Ryu of ARMS.
Yeah, Ribbon Girl was the Chun-Li.
Yeah, and Springtron was Ken or Evil Ryu.
The Akuma or something like that.
Yeah, it's like I don't agree with that, but Min Min was like the most unique and like coolest idea for like a fighter. Like obviously like Twintel was like a fan favorite, but I felt like Min Min kind of kept that whole like using her arms. Twintel used like her pigtails, you know.
Yeah, I think
so
it was
it's
mainly
like,
that like the director of ARMS wanted Min Min, and I think she won the popularity poll. Like kind of yeah, she just got in by that. I'm down to keep Min Min just off. It's Nintendo's fighting game. You know, let's put Min Min in.
Yeah, you know, I think like near the end of Smash Ultimate, they kind of veered off from like the actual like full-on Nintendo characters.
Yeah.
You know, even the Xenoblade ones, you know, like Monolith Soft is a Nintendo
like second
studio.
Party.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Monolith Soft is owned by them, but like they still own like copyright to the Xenoblade characters. Like you look on the bottom of the Xenoblade amiibo and it says Monolith Soft and Nintendo, kind of like Kirby. Min Min is like fully Nintendo EPD developed character. So I think she's unique enough. I think ARMS is like a sequel away from being like really, really cool and really good. So it's just like if an ARMS 2 does happen,
it's just so slow. Like I think if I could just move around in that game, I would like it a lot. I think that was my biggest issue with it.
Yeah, it felt like a party game that was designed like a traditional fighting game or like whatever. Like they were trying to make it a traditional fighting game, like in terms of like esports savvy kind of fighting game, but it had too many elements of like a party game, but it didn't have enough to make it a fun party game. Like they didn't have enough crazy items and all that
I
stuff.
Like all the side modes they had, but like the thing I really like about say like Street Fighter 6 coming up is that they have like a world you can explore. Like my favorite thing is the story modes in games that don't need them.
Yeah,
and I'm really excited
ARMS
about that.
Ours didn't have that, and it felt prime for it. It felt prime for just some dumb, stupid ass like little mode you could do that in. But
they had like more like Smash Classic mode was pretty much all they had for that. But yeah, anyways,
I'll keep Min,
and
we'll keep Steve. Sephiroth, Sephiroth is interesting.
I agree. I think like he falls in this camp of like villains, right? Like we need villains, and we have Bowser, K. Rool, Ganondorf. The thing with Sephiroth is that he is the JRPG villain. Like like of course we have Cloud, but Hero kind of filled the same role as like, oh, this is your JRPG protagonist. Even like Joker or Sora could have done the same thing, but I don't think anybody feels like the cultural void that is Sephiroth. Because I mean, even in like competitive Smash, Sephiroth is an incredibly lame and distant character, but people still think he's cool because it's Sephiroth.
It's interesting because like no other third-party series has a non-Echo Fighter second rep, you know? So it's just like, do you think Final Fantasy VII, and not even Final Fantasy as a whole, because whenever they show Cloud or Sephiroth, it's always Smash across Final Fantasy VII. Do you think Final Fantasy is the one that deserves that, or do you think another franchise does?
I'd say like another JRPG villain.
Well, I mean, I also like in third party, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
In general, third party, you know, I'd say Sonic. Sonic
definitely deserves more. I think like Sonic deserves a second rep more, but that's not to say Final Fantasy doesn't deserve it.
Does it feel weird? Like, I almost feel like Sonic was begrudgingly added by, like, Sakurai.
Yeah, you know, it's like, a lazy character design.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, like, I think that was the whole thing with Brawl, was that they were like, oh, yeah, you know, we added Sonic last minute because, like, we saw all the demand for it, and, you know, he almost didn't happen, but we got him in there, and that's why, like, his character design, like, the way his character is in Smash Brothers feels very lazy. It feels like it's all the same. Yeah,
like, and even then, excusable in Brawl, but I'm just shocked it never got updated from Smash 4 to Wii U.
Yeah, and even then, like, there's not a lot of like Sonic remixes or you know, music wise in Smash Brothers past like that Angel Island zone. I think it was Angel Island zone in Brawl. That was like the only one. And after that, it was just kind of like they'd add like a couple from like the newest games. Like they have Studiopolis and something from Sonic Forces.
I feel like with Sonic, like in the perfect Smash roster, like you add Shadow as an Echo Fighter, and then you add someone else as a new character.
Yeah, like that makes sense to me.
I think Sonic's way deserving of like 3, even like 4 characters if you really wanted to.
Yeah. But I feel like the Smash development team or Sakurai is just kind of like, we're good. Like, let's just have
still
Sonic,
the Nintendo argument. They're still holding over that grudge.
Yeah, looking at it as a whole, I do agree. Maybe Street Fighter could have like another rep, but it's also like, you know, I think Ryu, at least in our roster we're creating, I think Ryu is like the main only one that you really, really need. But yeah, I think I do agree with you. Like Sephiroth is like the only other one that's like, all right, you get that one. But like when we're cutting half the roster, does Sephiroth stay?
I think it's easy to say no. Like if push comes to shove, we can say no. But in my roster, like Sephiroth stays just because I think this game needs villains. And when we're like, one of the, you know, think about whenever like the Smash trailers happen, you know, they have those awesome graphics of like Mario fighting Bowser, Link fighting Ganon. We're getting rid of like Fox Wolf, you know, we're getting rid of that dynamic. We don't have like any villains for like Fire Emblem, which is a very represented series. We don't have any villains in like Pokemon, which is another super represented series.
Is that why you want to keep Kazuya? Because Kazuya kind of follows that role a little bit.
I don't think he's like a villain to the roster. I just think like Tekken to me is like growing up there was there was Smash Brothers, Street Fighter, and Tekken for like fighting games. I was like, this covers all 3 kinds of fighting games because like even though Kazuya is like a fighting game, it's like an arena fighter, whereas like Ryu is this 2D traditional fighting game. And I think like even though Ryu and Kazuya are both like FGC oriented, I think Kazuya represents something else than Ryu does. But I think what Ryu represents is the same thing that Terry or Ken represent.
I think that's fair. So like I'm down to keep both of those.
Pyramithra
But in
can
the
go.
middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that technically counts as like 2 characters right there.
That's two.
Yeah, I think Xenoblade's good with like just like Shulk.
Yeah.
At least like as it stands, like, you know, having to cut. I think Pyra and Myth are a cool mechanic. You know, it kind of does fulfill that,
the Pokemon
you know, the
trainer
void
thing.
Yeah, and also the void left when, you know, Sheik became separate from Zelda. But overall, I think, I don't know. I mean, like, Xenoblade has had 4 entries so far, you know, if you're counting X as well.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it, you know, like, I think it is deserving of like 2, but it's also like, you know, you look at like, Splatoon has gotten 3 entries, and it's one of the most popular
Inkling.
series of Nintendo. Yeah, and you only have Inkling, and you know it's newer than Xenoblade, but not by a crazy ton. So it's just like, you know, it kind of feels like, you know, like, all right, kind of like balancing out, like, all right, the newer Nintendo series, which one deserves more? You know, I feel like Splatoon probably deserves a little bit more. But yeah, I think Shulk is like a perfect representation of Xenoblade. Pyra and Myth are kind of like bonuses.
I feel like it could kind of be what we were like composing Fire Emblem to be in like the Brawl era, where it's like it's Shulk and the newest entrant. Like in Smash 6, it wouldn't be Shulk Pyramithra, it'd be like Shulk Noah, you know?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Kazuya, like you were saying, like, I'm definitely hearing you with that, where, you know, Ryu can represent kind of the 2D fighting game.
Yeah.
And you know, because Kazuya can kind of represent the 3D one. Sora, I think, is another kind of fan favorite.
I think Sora gets axed, because
it's
not only is it like dealing with Disney, which is something like I wouldn't wish on my own worst enemy, but it's just like, I don't know if it's just me getting older, which it probably has a lot to do with, honestly, but I feel like Sora has, ironically enough, lost the magic because it's just been so long. But I just feel like the character isn't as interesting anymore because it felt like an impossibility back before Cloud was added. You know, like, that's really the turning point of Smash Brothers.
Yeah, I think overall Sora, it was awesome to see him in the game.
Yeah,
I'm
good
not like
final character too.
Yeah, but it's also like a very fan favorite character, and you can see where they had to like duck around, and I don't feel like, well, I feel like his representation like is pretty good in terms of like the Kingdom Hearts, like the Final Fantasy element of Kingdom Hearts. There's another whole element of Kingdom Hearts, and like obviously like I think Sora is kind of cool as the final inclusion mainly because he is kind of the representation of crossovers in the crossover fighting game. I think that's kind of cool.
I think it's cool. I mean, the image of like him and Mario and everything, but also, can we just quickly talk about how every Smash character, or every Smash game, has never ended on a good final character?
Yeah. Where it's just like, what? Like,
look at this roster. Like,
what is it?
The last character in Brawl was, I mean, Wolf, Toon Link, and Jigglypuff were hidden in the game, but I think, like, the last character announced for Brawl pre-release was Olimar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, on the roster here, they consider it to be Wolf. And then Duck Hunt.
Oh, but I'm
Smash
saying
4.
like last announced character, because remember they didn't used to show every character before release.
Oh yeah, well it was Shulk in Smash 4.
Yeah, it was Shulk, and then it was Bayonetta for DLC. Then it was
technically Piranha Plant.
and
Incineroar,
and then Byleth for Fighters Pass 1.
Yeah, so technically Sora is probably the best we could have asked for.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it is really weird. No matter what, his inclusion is a little weird to me. If you include the Disney characters, I'm kind of like, all right, so you're okay with non-video game characters being on the battlefield and all that stuff in Smash Brothers. At that point, like, why are some of the most iconic fictional characters of all time hidden in Sora's moveset when it's just like, at that point, you might as well make Mickey Mouse a playable character, you know?
Yeah.
But without the Disney characters, it feels like an entire half of Kingdom Hearts is just not represented.
Yeah. I'm still shocked that they even got, like, the keychain on the Keyblade.
Yeah.
I felt like they weren't getting the 3 circles.
Yeah, a lot of people, like, theorize, like, it would just be, like, the Smash symbol or something, which I think would have worked.
Yeah, and also that's kind of what they did for, like, the Kingdom Hearts Final Smash, whatever.
Yeah. It's it's kind of weird. Do you think that was a Disney thing, or that was more so like Sakurai being like, all right, well, we want to keep this to be video game characters?
I don't know, because like there's
I don't know why
history
Disney would be
of that.
so. Yeah, I don't know why Disney would be so tight on that. Where people are like, oh, it's Disney, they're super tight on that. It's just like, I don't know, man. Like when it's Nintendo, they seem to kind of trust Nintendo with a lot of their stuff. Where it's just like they're like, yeah, sure, we want our characters in your Smash Brothers fighting game. Like that's a huge thing to have your characters in Smash Brothers. So it's just like for them to be like, we don't want Goofy in this game. Like I'm like,
Also,
I feel like that's a little strange.
I just counted, and I might be wrong, but I think we have 45.
Ooh, like 45 characters left.
Yeah,
I'm counting 47. Counting the Pokemon trainer as 3.
Maybe
Pokemon.
I didn't. That's what happened. I counted it as 1.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
So we got 7 characters to cut.
Let's rapid fire. I say let's do the ones we argued over of like Pit, Zero Suit. I'm fine to cut Pokemon trainer.
That makes it pretty easy.
Yeah.
Cut Pit and Zero Suit.
We're down 5.
And then cut all the Pokemon trainer, or
keep Charizard.
Hey, listen,
keep Charizard.
Well, what if we keep Pokemon trainer and we just cut 3 other whatever nobodies? Because it's just like, why do we keep Ike but keep get rid of the Pokemon trainer? I feel like
I think we can get rid of. I think Little Mac.
Yeah, if we're cutting Pit and Zero Suit, I think Little Mac needs to get cut.
So that's 3.
That's 3. We got 4 more to do.
I think, like, honestly, Violet's Duck Hunt. Like, I know I spend so much time defending Byleth, but we can get rid of Violet's
Duck Hunt. Okay. We got.
Dude, if we're getting rid of Mega Man, I think we get rid of Duck Hunt.
Come on, he's funny.
He's funny.
1, 2. Well, we got 5 now. We got 2 more to cut.
Okay.
2 more.
Do you want to cut Ness? That was kind of like the first one. You can get rid of Kazuya. I don't think Kazuya feels like... He's not family friendly.
Super necessary. I don't think Kazuya's necessary. I think it's cool that he's here. I don't think he's necessary. All right, boom. And then maybe Ness. Who else do we have?
I think Olimar or Ness is kind of what it looks like.
Well, let's be honest. Earthbound's another pretty big fan favorite kind of thing.
Yeah, I think...
As in, like...
Olimar, Bayonetta, Ness. I think somewhere in that 3.
Olimar, Bayonetta, Ness. Okay. Well, I think Bayonetta's like our only M-rated rep now, right?
Yeah, because we're getting rid of Snake.
Yeah, and like Ness is already like, all right, like I know Ness is super unique, but we already have Hero and Cloud as kind of our JRPG reps.
Yeah, but this is Nintendo
and like a
JRPG.
couple others.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Bayo is like super relevant. I think Bayo is more relevant to Nintendo now than Ness is. That's the thing.
That is true. That is very true. But why are we keeping Ike then? Because we already got multiple. We got Marth and Chrom and...
We got rid of Byleth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think...
then why do we have Chrom? Oh, man. Well, Ike is like kind of like a Smash Brothers royalty at this point.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I think we're kind of keeping him just because we like him. Because he's been in so many Smash Brothers games.
Marth,
where it's just
Chrom
like, you just kind of need
sense.
Marth in an Awakening rep.
I agree with that.
So it's just like, I think we could cut Ike. Is that our last character then?
I think that's 40, right? You want to double check?
38, 39, 40! We got it done!
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think we did it.
I can't wait to not sleep at night because of the choices that I made.